Chapter 1881. Information about Ka. Although Duan Lingtian was able to transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, it did not mean that Xuezong was afraid of him. He was only afraid of the 9-clawed divine dragon supporting him. Not only that, in Xuezong's eyes, Duan Lingtian was just like an ant even if he was a 9-clawed dragon warrior. In the history of Dao Martial Saint Land, there were many 7-clawed dragon warriors and 8-clawed dragon warriors that accomplished nothing. This was because being granted the ability to transform into a dragon warrior did not mean it would raise one's innate talent. They would still have to rely on themselves in regards to innate talent. The ability to transform into a dragon warrior would only grant them greater combat ability. Take Duan Lingtian for example. Although his strength was on par with a divine saint stage powerhouse, it was impossible for him to fight a quintessential saint stage powerhouse even if he could transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior and use all the techniques in his arsenal. Needless to say, it was completely impossible for him to fight Xuezong, who had already entered the saint celestial stage. In Xuezong's opinion, Duan Lingtian's innate talent in the lower province could be considered as not too bad, but it really did not amount to much. Although there were not many young powerhouses in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land with high innate talent like Duan Lingtian, they were not rare. Moreover, he was at the intermediate exemplary saint stage when he was Duan Lingtian's age. Due to this reason, he did not think Duan Lingtian would ever be able to catch up to him, let alone surpass him. Since he could not chase up to him, naturally, he did not worry about it as well. He knew this very well when he spared Duan Lingtian's life. If he had thought Duan Lingtian had the potential to catch up to him, he would not have shown any mercy and would have killed Duan Lingtian even if meant risking the wrath of a 9-clawed divine dragon. One could say that it was because Xuezong had underestimated Duan Lingtian's innate talent that Duan Lingtian was able to live. This is the Crouching Dragon Lake. The Azure Cloud Mansion's estate is inside. 10 days later, when Duan Lingtian's family of 3, Bai Li Hong, and the others arrived outside of the Azure Cloud Mansion's estate where the Crouching Dragon Lake could be seen, Duan Lingtian explained this to Bai Li Hong and the others. Azure Cloud Mansion. Whether it was Bai Li Hong, Feng Wudao, the Nangong twins or Chen Xiaoshuai, their eyes all lit up when they heard the Azure Cloud Mansion was near. The Azure Cloud Mansion was one of the 2 most powerful forces in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. From today onward, they would become one of the members through the connections they had with Duan Lingtian. They were all excited. With Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, leading the road, it was only natural that Bai Li Hong, Feng Wudao, and the others could enter the Crouching Dragon Lake as though it was uncharted territory. Before heading to the central main hall of the Azure Cloud Mansion's main mansion, Duan Lingtian told Li Fei, who stood next to him, "Little Feier, bring Nianer back first." Li Fei nodded her head obediently before she bade farewell to the others. She brought Duan Niantian and left. Inside the central main hall in the Azure Cloud Mansion's main mansion, Bai Li Hong and the others finally met Duan Rufeng, Duan Lingtian's father, for the first time. Faced with the famous mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Rufeng, apart from Shang Quan who had been following Duan Lingtian for a long time, everyone else felt a little awkward. However, as the saying went, the love for the house would extend even to the crows that perch on its roof. Duan Rufeng did not put on any arrogant air when he met Bai Li Hong and the others. He was friendly and easy to approach. It slowly put Bai Li Hong and the others at ease. In the end, they were even talking and laughing like old friends who were reunited after many years apart. "Master Bai Li, Brother Feng, and all of you, from today onward, you can regard this place as your home. As long as you stay in the Azure Cloud Mansion, the Azure Cloud Mansion will protect you. Not only that, but we'll also provide all of you with the best cultivation environment and resources as well," Duan Rufeng told Bai Li Hong and the others. The group of people in front of him was his son's close friends. Naturally, he, as Duan Lingtian's father, would not be negligent in his treatment of them. "Thank you, Mansion Master Duan." Bai Li Hong and the others immediately expressed their gratitude when they heard Duan Rufeng's words. "Tianer, after you've arranged accommodations for your senior brother, Uncle Feng, and the others, come and look for me." When Duan Lingtian was about to send Bai Li Hong and the others to rest, his father's voice resonated in his ears the moment he stepped out of the great door of the central main hall. His father's voice sounded a little grim. Duan Lingtian's heart instantly jolted as an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Although he was curious about the reason his father asked him to come back, he put everything aside to arrange accommodations for Bai Li Hong and the others. When Duan Lingtian entered the central main hall again, he looked at his father instantly and asked anxiously, "Father, why did you ask me to come back?" At this moment, only father and son were left in the central main hall. "Tianer, there's information about Ka and my granddaughter," Duan Rufeng answered with a grave expression. Ka. Upon hearing his words, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed immediately. His breathing had also quickened. "Father, how is Ka and our daughter?" Based on his father's words, it was clear Ka had given birth to a daughter for him. However, this was not important for now. What he wanted to know most was how Ka and his daughter were doing. "Ka and your child are safe for the time being," Duan Rufeng replied again. "For the time being?" Duan Lingtian frowned. "Father, what do you mean?" Duan Rufeng sighed. "According to the person I asked to inquire about the situation, both Ka and my granddaughter are imprisoned in the enforcement hall of the fire worship sect. They're currently waiting for the sect leader of the fire worship sect to come out of closed-door cultivation before they decide on what to do with Ka and her child. Based on the current situation, it's difficult for them to survive." What? Horror dawned on Duan Lingtian. Ka and his daughter were imprisoned by the people from the fire worship sect's enforcement hall. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath to calm down before he looked at Duan Rufeng and asked, "Father, is this information reliable?" "It 100% reliable," Duan Rufeng said confidently. If this news was obtained by a watcher, he would not have believed it 100%, but the problem was, this was information given to him by the elusive and mysterious old prophet. The old prophet who had helped the Azure Cloud Mansion lure Elder Xiezong from the Black Kshetra sect away had returned to the Azure Cloud Mansion a few days after he had shaken Xiezong off. Apart from informing him that Xiezong had returned to the upper province, he had also informed him about Ka and her daughter's situation. "Father, can you tell me who told you about this?" Duan Lingtian asked. "Tianer, the person who told me this is the old prophet who's famous in the entire upper and lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land," Duan Rufeng replied. The old prophet? Duan Lingtian was astonished. This was because he had heard about the old prophet and knew that he was famous in the Dao Martial Saint Land due to his fortune-telling ability. It was said that the old prophet's predictions were always accurate. The people in the Dao Martial Saint Land even called him the living immortal. "Father, you know the old prophet?" Duan Lingtian was astonished. It did not cross his mind that his father was acquainted with the old prophet. The old prophet was famous in the upper province, let alone the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Even the leaders of the third-rate, second-rate, and first-rate forces in the upper province might not necessarily know him. However, not only his father, a mere leader of a quasi-third-rate force in the lower province, knew the old prophet, but they seemed to be well acquainted as well. Otherwise, why would he inform his father of this matter? From what Duan Lingtian had heard, the old prophet might not even move under the orders of leaders of first-rate forces and the three great sects. "I became acquainted with him through an accident. After that, we've seen each other a few times, so we can hardly be called acquaintances." Although Duan Rufeng had told Duan Lingtian about the old prophet, he did not tell him the reason the old prophet had approached was due to Duan Lingtian himself. This was also the instruction left behind by the old prophet. For the time being, he did not want Duan Rufeng to reveal this to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian finally understood the severity of the situation. At the same time, his expression turned grim. "Since the old prophet told you this, the information must be true. Father, did he say when the sect leader of the fire worship sect will come out of closed-door cultivation?" he asked anxiously. "No, he didn't." Duan Rufeng shook his head. Naturally, he also wanted to know about this. He had asked the old prophet about it, but the old prophet had said he did not know. There was nothing he could do at all. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. He seemed determined as he told Duan Rufeng, "Father, I'll leave the Azure Cloud Mansion today and head to the upper province." Initially, he had planned to leave after a short while. However, now that he learned about the situation his fiancée and daughter was in, his heart was filled with anxiety. He was desperate to go to the upper province to rescue his fiancée and daughter. He would not allow anybody to hurt them. "Be careful." Duan Rufeng was not surprised with Duan Lingtian's decision. He would have made the same decision if he was in his son's shoes. If he was not the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion and had a family and a group of friends who needed his protection, he would have followed his son to the upper province. Sure, Duan Lingtian nodded solemnly before he went to meet his mother quickly to tell her about his decision to leave the Azure Cloud Mansion today to head to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. You're going to the upper province today? Tian'er, is it really that urgent? Li Ru felt reluctant and was shocked by her son's sudden decision. What happened? Mother, there's information about Ka. Duan Lingtian answered anxiously with a bitter expression on his face. Both mother and daughter are now imprisoned in the Fire Worship Sect's enforcement hall. They're only waiting for the sect leader of Fire Worship Sect to come out from closed-door cultivation before they decide on what to do with them. Mother, I must rescue both of them before the sect leader of the Fire Worship Sect comes out of closed-door cultivation. Ka. Mother and daughter. Upon hearing his words, Li Ru became emotional. Apart from having a grandson, she had a granddaughter as well. However, when she regained her senses, Duan Lingtian's words finally sank in. Horror dawned on her when she realized the situation Ka and her daughter was in. Chapter 1881. Chapter 1882. The former Palace Master of Heaven Palace. Tian'er, please be careful. I know you need to rescue Ka and your daughter, but I don't want any harm to come to you as well. Once Li Ru found out the reason Duan Lingtian was so eager to leave the Azure Cloud Mansion to head to the upper province, she no longer tried to dissuade him. She only reminded him to be careful. Mother, I know. Duan Lingtian nodded. He had already bid farewell to his parents. Next, he, naturally, went to look for his fiancée, Li Fei. Go, please be careful. I hope you'll rescue Sister Ka and her daughter as soon as you can. When Li Fei learned that Ka and her daughter were imprisoned in the enforcement hall and were in danger, horror dawned on her face. Not only that, but she even urged Duan Lingtian to leave as soon as he could. I will. After he hugged Li Fei and spent some time with her, Duan Lingtian finally let go of her. He turned around without looking back at all. He did not dare to turn back. He was afraid he would feel unwilling to leave. Although he had returned to the Azure Cloud Mansion for quite some time now, he was usually cultivating and rarely accompanied his wife and son due to the 5-year pact. He felt like he was an incompetent husband and father. After parting ways with Li Fei, Duan Lingtian proceeded to look for Xiaolan and Bai Yao. Why you're going to leave so soon? After learning that Duan Lingtian was going to leave, Xiaolan and Bai Yao were shocked. A hint of longing appeared in their autumn eyes. I must go to the Fire Worship Sect as soon as possible and come up with a way to rescue Ka and our daughter. Otherwise, something might happen to them. Duan Lingtian said. His voice was filled with worries. That's right. Jingru is not back yet. After he said goodbye to Xiaolan and Bai Yao, Duan Lingtian suddenly remembered Jingru when he was about to leave. Jingru was the manager of the large mansion he had bought in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city, who had also followed his mother and father to the Azure Cloud Mansion. Duan Lingtian had been in Azure Cloud Mansion for so long, but until now, he did not see her at all. Similar to Xiaolan and Bai Yao, she had gone out to train and experience life. However, she had gone on her own. Up until now, there was no news about her at all. No, Xiaolan and Bai Yao shook their heads. If she comes back, send my greetings to her. All right, I'll take my leave now. Duan Lingtian left as soon as he finished speaking. Staring at Duan Lingtian's silhouette from afar, Xiaolan and Bai Yao were in a daze. It was only until Duan Lingtian's silhouette had completely disappeared from their sight that they returned to their senses. They could only smile wryly at each other. If he treats me like how he treats Ka, I'll die without any regrets, Xiaolan said faintly. Me, too. Upon hearing that, Bai Yao nodded in agreement. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not hear the two women's words. After leaving Xiaolan and Bai Yao's residence, Duan Lingtian went to the Azure Cloud platform to look for Ji Yuli. From the beginning, he did not forget the promise he had made with Ji Yuli to go to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land together. The Azure Cloud platform was the place where the most outstanding Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples gathered. If it was before, perhaps Duan Lingtian might be interested in the Azure Cloud platform. However, his current strength had far surpassed those Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples on the Azure Cloud platform. It was only natural he was not interested. Junior brother Lingtian. Ji Yuli was surprised by Duan Lingtian's sudden appearance. What are you doing here? There must be a reason for Duan Lingtian to personally come here to look for him. However, he could not guess what it was. Senior brother Ji Yuli, prepare yourself. I'll find you again in an hour. Let's leave the Azure Cloud Mansion and head to the upper province. I have to say goodbye to a few more people. After that, I'll return to look for you. Duan Lingtian did not beat around the bush. He quickly left without waiting for Ji Yuli's reply. He still needed to say goodbye to Bai Li Hong, Feng Wudao, and the others. I'll see you in an hour in the central main hall. Ji Yuli was still shocked when Duan Lingtian's voice resonated in his ears. There seems to be something wrong with junior brother Lingtian. It's fine, I'll find out later why he's in such a rush to go to the upper province, Ji Yuli muttered to himself, the frown on his face gradually easing away. Junior brother, you're leaving today. Bai Li Hong was not the only one who found it strange. Even Feng Wudao and the others thought it was strange when they learned that Duan Lingtian was leaving the Azure Cloud Mansion and heading to the upper province today. In fact, when they were returning to the Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian had mentioned several times that he would only leave the Azure Cloud Mansion and head to the upper province after a short time. However, currently, it seemed like he had forgotten what he had said. The situation is urgent. Faced with the confused expressions of Bai Li Hong and the others, Duan Lingtian explained with a bitter expression, I just received information about Ka, so I need to look for her as soon as possible in the upper province. Upon hearing his words, Bai Li Hong and the others finally understood. After saying goodbye to Bai Li Hong and the others, about 30 minutes had gone by. Duan Lingtian made his way to the central main hall immediately. He discovered that Ji Yuli was already waiting for him. Junior brother, did something happen that you're in such a rush to head to the upper province? Something was not right. Ji Yuli felt that Duan Lingtian was in such a rush to leave because something had happened. He soon obtained the answer from Duan Lingtian. Once he discovered the reason, Ji Yuli urged Duan Lingtian, let's go, junior brother Lingtian. Then, Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli left the Azure Cloud Mansion together and made their way north. The passage leading to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land was located there. Ji Yuli broke the silence during their journey and pointed in the distance before he said to Duan Lingtian, the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters estate is right there. Upon hearing that, Duan Lingtian looked over as well. However, he only saw smoke in the distance. Naturally, that was all Ji Yuli could see as well, but he roughly knew where the estate of the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters was located. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a deafening explosion resonated from the path ahead of Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli. As they went closer, the sound became louder and louder. Is there a fight? Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli exchanged glances. They were both surprised. Junior brother Lingtian, shall we take a detour or should we just ignore them and continue forward? Ji Yuli looked at Duan Lingtian and asked. Let's take a detour. These people don't seem weak. Duan Lingtian was anxious to go to the upper province. He wanted to avoid trouble if possible. Based on the huge commotion ahead of them, it was enough for him to tell that both parties were quite strong. With Duan Lingtian's current strength, he was certain the two people who were fighting were at the exemplary saint stage or above. Not only that, but they were not ordinary early exemplary saint stage powerhouses as well. Sure, Ji Yuli did not object to Duan Lingtian's decision of taking a detour. Currently, Duan Lingtian was like his guide. Just as Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli were about to take a detour, a burst of loud laughter resonated ahead of them. Feng Bi Yuyi, did you think this day will come when you humiliated me previously? Zhu Luqi, even if you kill me today, it'll be hard for you to escape death as well. Those who cultivate the devouring dark devil technique are destined to have a bad ending. Another voice sounded. However, compared to the former's voice, the latter's voice sounded a little dispirited. When Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli heard the voices, they were dumbfounded. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. It's Zhu Luqi, Ji Yuli gasped. It's indeed Palace Master Zhu. Duan Lingtian nodded. He could also tell the voice belonged to the former Palace Master of Heaven Palace in Mystical Sky Mansion, Zhu Luqi. Based on his words, it was obvious he was fighting with Feng Bi Yuyi. Moreover, based on Feng Bi Yuyi's words, it seemed like he was no longer a match for Zhu Luqi. Let's go. Although Duan Lingtian knew they people ahead of them, he still planned to take a detour. After all, Zhu Luqi was no longer the Palace Master of Heaven Palace in the Mystical Sky Mansion. Who knew whether he would attack him and Ji Yuli since he had cultivated the devouring dark devil technique? He was not sure how powerful Zhu Luqi was currently, so he did not dare to take this risk. Alright, Ji Yuli had the same thought with Duan Lingtian. For this reason, he immediately agreed to take a detour. Boom, boom, Boom! More loud explosions resonated in the air. They were deafeningly loud. Suddenly, it came to a halt. It has ended, Ji Yuli remarked. Yeah, Duan Lingtian nodded. Based on Zhu Luqi and Feng Biyuyi's words earlier, Feng Biyuyi doesn't seem to be a match for Zhu Luqi. Ji Yuli added again. Do you think Palace Master Zhu would appear and fight with Feng Biyuyi if he isn't sure he can defeat Feng Biyuyi? Duan Lingtian said as he shook his head. He felt Ji Yuli had just stated something obvious. Upon hearing that, Ji Yuli also realized his words were redundant. He only laughed awkwardly. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian, who had sharp hearing, suddenly heard the faint sound of wind whistling as it turned louder and louder. Damn it! Horror dawned on Duan Lingtian. At this moment, Ji Yuli also noticed then noise coming from behind them. He was horrified. Duan Lingtian, Ji Yuli. A gust of wind seemed to have blown past Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli. In just an instant, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. It was an old man. This old man was no stranger to Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli. He was none other than Zhu Luqi, the former palace master of the Heaven Palace in Mystical Sky Mansion. Currently, he was staring at them expressionlessly as he blocked their path. Palace Master Zhu, it has been a long time. Unlike Ji Yuli, who still had a horrified expression on his face, Duan Lingtian's expression had returned to normal. Moreover, he even took the initiative to greet Zhu Luqi. Chapter 1882. When Zhu Luqi encountered Duan Lingtian, he did not address him as Lingtian but as Duan Lingtian instead. Although Duan Lingtian looked completely different, he could tell from Ji Yuli's presence that the young man before him, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, was Lingtian, the former #1 genius among the younger generation in the Mystical Sky Mansion. Ever since Duan Lingtian made his appearance in the Dragon Clan to fulfill the 5-year pact, and Ji Yuli's presence next to the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion had been exposed, Duan Lingtian's fake identity had also been exposed. That genius whose innate talent had taken all quasi-third-rate forces in the lower province by surprise had turned out to be the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. This news had spread out quickly as soon as the 5-year pact was over. Perhaps, outsiders would only feel slightly shocked when they heard the news. However, when Zhu Luqi heard it, he felt differently from the others. This was because he was originally the palace master of the Heaven Palace in Mystical Sky Mansion, and Duan Lingtian had joined the Heaven Palace. He had interacted with him a few times. However, it did not cross his mind, even in his wildest dreams, that the monstrous genius, Lingtian, would turn out to be the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. What, you're not afraid of me? Zhu Luqi asked as he swung the bloody head in his hand when he saw how calm Duan Lingtian was. Although the head he held in his hand was mostly covered in blood, Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli could instantly tell it belonged to Feng Biyuyi, the deputy leader of the Mountainshade Black Market. Not only was Feng Biyuyi killed by Zhu Luqi, but he was even decapitated. It was a tragic sight. Why should I be scared? Duan Lingtian asked in response to Zhu Luqi's question. Zhu Luqi was rendered speechless by Duan Lingtian's answer. Duan Lingtian no longer spoke, and they only stared at each other. Both of them were calm, but Ji Yuli, who was standing at the side, became anxious. He quickly transmitted his voice using voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Junior brother Lingtian, this Zhu Luqi is no longer the former palace master Zhu of our Heaven Palace. He has cultivated the devouring dark devil technique. Currently, he's a devil cultivator who kills people as though they're flies. Don't act recklessly, otherwise, we'll be doomed if we anger him. Ji Yuli was afraid Duan Lingtian would anger Zhu Luqi. Since Zhu Luqi could kill the deputy leader of Mountainshade Black Market, Feng Biyuyi, this meant his cultivation base must have either entered the Mastery Exemplary Saint stage or the peak of the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage. Such a powerhouse was not someone he was a match for. As for Duan Lingtian, even if he unleashed all his techniques and used his movement divine ability, his speed was only at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage. His attacks were far from the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage. All of this could be seen when Duan Lingtian kept dodging Diju's attack during the 5-year pact. Due to this reason, Ji Yuli did not think Duan Lingtian was a match for Zhu Luqi. Zhu Luqi was not like Diju. He was a true powerhouse at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage or above. Not only that, but he was not the kind of half-assed Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage powerhouse transformed by the inherited divine ability like Diju. In the end, Duan Lingtian broke the silence first and asked, Palace Master Zhu, the reason you beheaded Feng Biuyi is to announce to everybody on the Dao Martial Saint land that you've killed him, right? That's right. Zhu Luqi nodded. Duan Lingtian, I must admit you're indeed very smart. However, are you really not worried that I'll kill you? When Zhu Luqi reached the end of his sentence, his eyes flashed coldly. Will you? Duan Lingtian asked in return. Zhu Luqi did not expect Duan Lingtian would remain so calm. He was rendered speechless once again. After a while, he shook his head. I won't. Then, there's no problem at all. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. Are Fei Zan and the others okay? Zhu Luqi asked after taking a deep breath. They're doing well, Ji Yuli replied before Duan Lingtian could answer him. Before this, the Zhao clan had intentionally made things difficult for them after you left the mystical sky mansion. It was junior brother Lingtian who stood up for them and even signed the death pact with a member from the Zhao clan and killed him. Ever since then, although everyone knows they no longer have you to rely on, nobody dares to make things difficult for them. Ji Yuli was trying to fish for compliments. In his opinion, if Zhu Luqi felt grateful to Duan Lingtian, he would not attack them. He had no choice but to be on guard. After all, as the saying went, caution is the parent of safety. Thank you. After hearing Ji Yuli's words, various expressions fleeted across Zhu Luqi's face before it returned to normal. He looked at Duan Lingtian and bowed slightly to express his gratitude. There's no need to thank me, Palace Master Zhu. Wang Fei Zan is my friend, and even if she's not your disciple, I won't stand idly at the side, Duan Lingtian said as he shook his head. No matter what, I still need to thank you. I, Zhu Luqi, have always known how to distinguish between kindness and ill will. Zhu Luqi replied solemnly. I can see that. Duan Lingtian nodded his head solemnly as he glanced at the bloody head in Zhu Luqi's hand. If it was not for the fact that he could clearly distinguish kindness and ill will, why would he abandon himself and succumb to cultivating the Devil Dao cultivation method, the devouring dark devil technique that everybody hated in order to kill Feng Biuyi? However, it really did not cross my mind that you're the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Duan Lingtian, you've deceived everyone, including me. Suddenly, as though he was reminded of something, Zhu Luqi looked at Duan Lingtian and changed the topic as he sighed. Based on the expression on his face, it was clear he did not blame Duan Lingtian. Palace Master Zhu, I'm afraid you have misunderstood. I didn't deceive all of you. Duan Lingtian shook his head. When I was at the mystical sky mansion, although I knew my father is in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land, I didn't know he's the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. I only left the mystical sky mansion and went to the Azure Cloud Mansion to reunite with my family after I found out that I'm the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. That's indeed the case. Ji Yuli nodded in support of Duan Lingtian's words. I see. Zhu Luqi finally understood. Then, in that case, it's me who've misunderstood you. It was apparent that Zhu Luqi did not doubt Duan Lingtian's words. Duan Lingtian did not have to deceive him. Palace Master Zhu, the reason you cultivated the devouring dark devil technique is to seek revenge, right? Duan Lingtian asked as he looked at Zhu Luqi. Zhu Luqi did not expect Duan Lingtian to ask about this suddenly, so his eyes narrowed instinctively. Junior brother Lingtian, Ji Yuli panicked and asked anxiously through voice transmission, why did you ask him about this? In Ji Yuli's opinion, the devouring dark devil technique was like a scar on Zhu Luqi's body. It was okay if nobody prodded it. However, if someone prodded it, he would definitely be enraged out of humiliation. Duan Lingtian's action was akin to pouring salt on Zhu Luqi's wound. Yes. However, to Ji Yuli's surprise, faced with Duan Lingtian's question, Zhu Luqi thought about it for a moment before he nodded. Do you regret it? Duan Lingtian asked. I didn't in the beginning. However, now that I killed him, I'm beginning to regret it. Zhu Luqi sighed as he glanced Feng Biuyi's head that he held in his hand. What can you do now even if you regret it? Don't tell me you can stop absorbing young women's vital blood and essence to cultivate. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Of course, I can. To Duan Lingtian's surprise, Zhu Luqi nodded. The devouring dark devil technique was first cultivated using the negative lunar force at night and was an orthodox top-tier devil Dao cultivation method. However, somebody eventually created a shortcut to cultivate by absorbing young women's vital essence and blood. The cultivation speed is much faster and far surpasses the speed of ordinary cultivation by several times. Since I've avenged myself, there's no longer any need for me to use the shortcut. Zhu Luqi muttered as he stared at Feng Biyuyi's head. I hope you mean what you said, Palace Master Zhu. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Luqi meaningfully before motioning to Ji Yuli to leave. Without bidding goodbye to Zhu Luqi, they proceeded to leave. There was no need for them to take a detour, so they continued to make their way north. Staring at Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli's silhouettes that were disappearing before his eyes, Zhu Luqi finally made his move. He brought Feng Biyuyi's head and made his way to the estate of the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters. Thud! A faint sound resonated and shocked the few guards in front of the great entrance of the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters. What's this? When they shifted their eyes to the source of the sound, they noticed a head on the ground. They were immediately shocked again. Before the few guards at the great entrance of the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters could see the face of the head clearly, a boisterous voice resonated in a timely manner. Please pass a message to Leader Dugu and say this is a huge present from Zhu Luqi to the Mountainshade Black Market. Upon hearing this voice, horror dawned on the few guards. At this moment, they would have lived their lives in vain if they still could not tell that somebody had come to provoke their Mountainshade Black Market. Whoosh, 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 the sounds of wind whistling could be heard as the few disciples who were patrolling the area above the sky of the estate of the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters charged toward the source of the voice, trying to find the person who dared to provoke their Mountainshade Black Market. Unfortunately, that person seemed to have left the moment he finished speaking. The disciples on patrol from the Mountainshade Black Market could not find him at all. Lord Deputy Leader. At this moment, the few guards who remained at the great entrance of the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters had also finally seen the face of the head. Was that not Feng Biyuyi, the first deputy leader of Mountainshade Black Market? Deputy leader has been killed. Not only was he killed, but he was decapitated as well. Just how strong is his enemy? Each of the guards was terrified and alarmed. They did not expect there was someone so bold in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land that he dared to provoke their Mountainshade Black Market in such a brazen manner. Was that person not afraid of death? That's right. Earlier, didn't the voice said his name's Zhu Luqi? One of the guards quickly regained his senses. Chapter 1883. Zhu Luqi. This name could be considered as well known in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Earlier, the guards at the great entrance of the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters did not realize what was going on. However, now that they had regained their senses, they looked at each other in shock and disbelief. Zhu Luqi, the former palace master of Heaven Palace in the mystical Sky Mansion. The person who cultivates the devouring dark devil technique. There seems to be a rumor that says the reason Zhu Luqi began to cultivate the devouring dark devil technique is to seek revenge from Deputy Leader Feng. Initially, I didn't think it's true. However, it seems like it's true. Deputy Leader Feng has really been killed by Zhu Luqi. Soon after, news of Deputy Leader Feng Biyuyi's death spread in the entire Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters. Due to this reason, a group of Mountainshade Black Market's high-ranking officials gathered with Mountainshade Black Market's leader Dugu as they discussed how to catch Zhu Luqi and kill him in order to seek revenge for Feng Biyuyi. At the same time, Zhu Luqi, who left the Mountainshade Black Market's headquarters, had returned to the place where he was currently staying. The place where he was staying was located in a valley in a remote mountain range with two simple wooden houses. Judging by the wood used to build the wooden houses, they were recently built. He occupied one of the wooden houses while the other wooden house was occupied by the former young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion, Xu Jing. Currently, Xu Jing's soul was almost completely healed, and it was trying to merge with his body. As soon as it was completely merged with his body, he would gain a new life and see the light of day again. Creak. The door to Xu Jing's wooden house opened without warning. You're back. Although Xu Jing's soul had not completely merged with his body, he could already use his divine consciousness as he pleased. Due to this reason, he could easily identify the person who just came in. Yes. The person who entered was none other than Zhu Luqi. At this moment, Zhu Luqi's eyes that were trained on Xu Jing were gleaming coldly. Didn't you go out to seek revenge from Feng Biyuyi? How did it go? Xu Jing asked. Very smoothly. He's dead, Zhu Luqi replied indifferently. Good. Once I'm completely healed, I'll disclose the final part of the devouring dark devil technique to you. In the future, we'll be able to roam wherever we like if both of us join forces. Xu Jing said excitedly. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to do that, Zhu Luqi replied suddenly. Stop joking. Xu Jing thought that he was joking. I'm not joking. Zhu Luqi's voice gradually turned colder. Don't forget that you and Zhao Ji have sworn on the lightning penalty oath before I disclose the devouring dark devil technique to both of you. Unless I take the initiative to go against both of you, you can't kill me at all. If you kill me, you'll die. Xu Jing did not seem worried at all. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I've thought about it. Even if I don't kill you, I can still make you unable to see the light of day again for eternity. Zhu Luqi spoke in an even more carefree tone. What are you trying to do? Finally, Xu Jing began to panic. Judging by Zhu Luqi's voice, it did not seem like he was joking. Tell me, if you lose all your limbs, what use is there even if your soul returns to your body? Zhu Luqi seemed to be talking to Xu Jing, but at the same time, he seemed to be talking to himself. No, you can't do that, you can't. Xu Jing was panicking now. When he transmitted his voice to Zhu Luqi, it sounded as though he had lost his mind. However, Zhu Luqi merely ignored him. With a raise of his hand, he cut off one of Xu Jing's limbs. Don't you want the final part of the devouring dark devil technique? Xu Jing's voice transmission roared in Zhu Luqi's ears. Although his soul had yet to completely return to his body, and he was unable to feel pain, through his divine consciousness, he could tell one of his limbs had been severed. I plan to cultivate the devouring dark devil technique normally by devouring the lunar force in the future. Do you think I still need the final part of the technique? Zhu Luqi asked nonchalantly. At the same time, he severed another one of Xu Jing's limbs. In the end, under Xu Jing's shout of despair, Zhu Luqi severed all his limbs and threw him into a hidden cave that he had long prepared. Then, he proceeded to fill the whole of the entrance and imprison Xu Jing inside forever. As for Xu Jing's soul that was almost fully healed, it was injured again by Zhu Luqi. Not only that, but he had even left behind a powerful corrosive devil chi that would corrode Xu Jing's soul constantly, stopping him from fully recovering. He could not kill Xu Jing due to the lightning penalty oath, so he could only do this much. After Zhu Luqi dealt with everything, he rose into the sky and looked in the direction where the mystical Sky Mansion's estate was located and muttered to himself, Mansion Master, although I can't kill him due to the lightning penalty oath, he can no longer cause trouble for the mystical Sky Mansion. This will be my parting gift to the mystical Sky Mansion before I leave the lower province. As soon as he finished speaking, he began to make his way north. Before he killed Feng Biyuyi, he had already come up with a plan. He would remove the threat that Xu Jing posed to the mystical Sky Mansion and leave the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land for the upper province after he had killed Feng Biyuyi. He wanted to start a new life in the upper province. With the devouring dark devil technique, he believed that he would be able to forge his own way even if he did not use any shortcut. At this instant, he felt the righteous blood that had been hibernating for many years in his body began to boil again. It was as though he had returned to when he was young, burning with righteousness. A few days into his journey, when he was about to reach the passage connecting the lower province to the upper province, two familiar silhouettes appeared in Zhu Luqi's eyes. It's them. Are they planning to go to the upper province as well? Zhu Luqi muttered to himself. He was able to figure out that much at least. The two silhouettes that he saw belonged to Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli, whom he had encountered not too long ago. Whoosh! In just a blink of an eye, Zhu Luqi overtook Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli and appeared in front of them. Palace Master Zhu. Duan Lingtian had long noticed the movement behind them. However, he did not sense any hostility from the person behind them, so he was not bothered about it. At this moment, he was shocked by the person who had appeared before them. What are you trying to do? Unlike Duan Lingtian's surprise, horror dawned on Ji Yuli as soon as he saw Zhu Luqi again. He thought Zhu Luqi regretted letting him and Duan Lingtian go, and he was here to kill them. Duan Lingtian, are both of you heading to the upper province? Zhu Luqi asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded before he asked in a slightly shocked voice, are you planning to go to the upper province as well, Palace Master Zhu? Yes. Zhu Luqi nodded. Now that I've avenged myself, I have no more ties in the lower province. For this reason, I plan to go to the upper province to start a new life. If both of you don't mind, why don't we travel together for the time being? Upon hearing that, Duan Lingtian did not reply Zhu Luqi immediately. He looked at Ji Yuli to see what his opinion was. This was because respected Ji Yuli's opinion as well. After all, he was not alone. If he was all alone, he would not have minded traveling with Zhu Luqi. After all, since he had gotten his revenge, he no longer planned to cultivate the devouring dark devil technique using the shortcut. Since he would be cultivating an orthodox devouring dark devil technique, it could be considered as him returning to the right path. As the saying went, a criminal who changes his way is more precious than gold. Now that Zhu Luqi no longer carried out deeds that were beyond evil, he did not feel repelled by Zhu Luqi. The fact that Duan Lingtian asked for Ji Yuli's opinion made him feel warm inside. Junior brother Lingtian, you decide. However, Ji Yuli still let Duan Lingtian have the final say. Palace Master Zhu, let's travel together then, Duan Lingtian told Zhu Luqi. It was obvious Zhu Luqi was excited upon hearing his answer. After all, if he headed to the upper province alone, he would be alone when he arrived at the upper province. He did not know anybody there and would have to start from scratch. However, if his fellow companions were also strong, things would be different. At the very least, the journey would be slightly smoother. Although Ji Yuli kept quiet, he still kept his guard up against Zhu Luqi. Zhu Luqi, naturally, noticed this. However, he acted as though he was not bothered by it. Inwardly, he felt bitter. Compared to Duan Lingtian, the relationship between him and Ji Yuli when they were in the mystical sky mansion was quite good. Duan Lingtian was just an ordinary Heaven Palace's disciple while the former, strictly speaking, was still his junior nephew. The three of them traveled together and soon arrived near the passage that connected the lower province to the upper province. A towering snowy mountain appeared before three of them. Due to the geographical location, this area was covered in snow all year round. It was even snowing heavily at this moment. Elder Lu, Duan Lingtian encountered a watcher on the summit of the snowy mountain. It was Elder Lu whom he had met in Azure Cloud Mansion not too long ago. When Duan Lingtian took the initiative to greet Elder Lu, he instantly recognized him as the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, the son of mansion master Duan Rufeng. Heading to the upper province? Elder Lu asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Elder Lu, although we know the passage is somewhere here, we still can't find it despite searching for a long time. Can you point us in the right direction please? After Elder Lu glanced at Zhu Luqi and Ji Yuli who was standing next to Duan Lingtian indifferently, he said to Duan Lingtian, follow me. At the same time, he rose up into the air and brought Duan Lingtian and the other two to the middle of the towering snowy mountain. It was snowing heavily where he brought them. Everything was covered by the snow. Whoosh! Under Duan Lingtian and the other two's watchful eyes, Elder Lu raised his hand. A vast energy appeared in his hand. As he waved it across the sky, an invisible energy swept out and swept off a fraction of snow that was gathered at the waist of the mountain, revealing an entrance to a cave. With just one glance, the cave was completely dark and nothing could be seen at all. This is the passage leading to the upper province. Looking at the entrance to the cave that was completely ordinary, Ji Yuli was slightly disappointed. Chapter 1884. Ji Yuli was not the only one who felt disappointed. Even Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi could not help but feel a hint of disappointment and confusion when they saw the entrance to the cave. In fact, it was not only Ji Yuli who was disappointed. This was the passage that connected the lower province to the upper province. It was completely different from what they had expected. Although they did not think it would be fancy, they thought it would be at least better than this shabby state. Perhaps, there's a different world inside, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The watcher, Elder Lu, did not notice Duan Lingtian and the other two's disappointment. After removing the snow to the entrance of the cave, he continued to make his move. In just a blink of an eye, 8 cave entrances appeared before Duan Lingtian and his two companions' eyes. In total, there were 9 cave entrances at the waist of the towering snowy mountain. If one were to look at it from a distance, one would be able to see the entrances formed a circle. Elder Lu, which one of these entrances lead to the upper province? Ji Yuli asked Elder Lu as he looked at him after he regained his senses. He could roughly guess things were not as he had assumed. These 9 cave entrances have saint stones that support the inter-province transportation formation. Each of these 9 caves has a standalone secondary formation. Once the transportation formation is activated, the 9 secondary formations will be activated as well. They will then deplete the saint stones and turn into the inter-province transformation formation. After that, you'll be able to enter the passage that leads to the upper province, Elder Lu answered Ji Yuli's question indifferently. Meanwhile, he began to make his move again. Whoosh! A solidified beam of light shot out from his fingertip like an electrical snake that soared across the sky. How fast? Duan Lingtian could only catch the faint trace in the wake of the beam of light. In just a blink of an eye, it had disappeared. When Zhu Luqi sensed the energy from this beam of light, chills ran up his spine. He could sense this beam of light was consolidated by a terrifying energy. If it was not aimed at the towering mountain, but at him, he would not have been able to stop it at all despite the fact that his cultivation base was close to breaking through to the mastery exemplary saint stage. Quintessential saint stage. Is this the energy of a quintessential saint stage powerhouse? Although Zhu Luqi felt wary, a hint of feverish passion could be seen in his eyes as well. He had heard that watchers of the Dao Martial Saint Land were quintessential saint stage powerhouses. Currently, he was no longer the same as he was previously. Although he did not plan to cultivate the devouring dark devil technique by absorbing young women's vital blood and essence, he was 100% confident he would be able to catch up to the Watcher and break through to the quintessential saint stage in the future. Unlike Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi, who was stunned, due to his weaker cultivation base, Ji Yuli did not notice the beam of light at all. Due to this reason, he was not confused nor stunned. Boom! When Zhu Luqi and Duan Lingtian's eyes shifted to the heart of the circle formed by the 9 caves where the beam of light landed, the snow which lay above it exploded. Subsequently, the 9 caves that were pitch black inside began to light up immediately. 9 waves of powerful aura swept out of the 9 caves, pressuring Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions. What a powerful energy! The saint stones inside must be higher than 3rd grade saint stones. In the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the quasi-3rd-rate forces monopolized the quasi-3rd-grade Saint Stone reserves. The quasi-3rd-grade Saint Stone reserves were the best in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. The best Saint Stones that were produced by these reserves were only 3rd-grade Saint Stones. Moreover, it did not produce many 3rd-grade Saint Stones as well. Swish, 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 swish. Soon after, Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions saw something flashed across their eyes. They discovered it was 9 beams of light of different colors shooting out from the 9 caves into the sky at a very fast speed. Among the 9 colors, 7 of them were the colors of the rainbow. It was red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The remaining 2 colors were white and black. Boom! Under Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions, watchful eyes, the 9 energies collided and set off a thunderous noise. Then, the 9 waves of energy began to fuse together. In the end, the black and white energies were the most prominent. They formed a pattern that Duan Lingtian was familiar with. Tai Chi, the yin-yang diagram. The yin-yang diagram hovered in the air. A translucent and mysterious energy gathered above it. From afar, with the yin-yang diagram as the background, one could see the translucent energy seemed to have formed into a cylindrical shape. This is the Inter-Province Transportation Formation. Once you step inside, you'll be able to enter the passage that connects the lower province to the upper province. At the same time, Elder Lu's voice resonated, the passage is neither long nor short. However, there are dangers lurking in there. It'll only be dangerous to those who are below the eminent saint stage. An eminent saint stage powerhouse would be able to protect himself, but those with a higher cultivation base can protect himself and his companions if he chooses to. Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions instantly shifted their attention to the Inter-Province Transportation Formation. As for the things Elder Lu mentioned, like how those who were at the eminent saint stage and above could rely on their strength to cross the passage leading to the upper province, they had all heard it before, so it did not surprise them. They were more interested in the transportation formation. Apart from energy from the saint inscription, there seems to be energy from Dao Talisman as well in the transportation formation. Although the formation was quite a distance away, Duan Lingtian could feel the aura of the transportation formation. Moreover, after he had secretly activated his strange pupil, he could also see the partly hidden amulet inside the transportation formation. It was a Dao talisman. One could say that this inter-province transportation formation was formed from a combination of energies of the saint inscription and the Dao talisman. Elder Lu, taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian looked at Elder Lu and voiced out the question in his heart, who was the one who built this transportation formation? Moreover, the saint stones in the 9 caves are not 3rd-grade saint stones, right? As soon as Duan Lingtian spoke, he instantly voiced out the 2 biggest questions he had in his mind. He was very curious about the person who built this transportation formation. Apart from that, He was also curious about how many saint stones and what grade they were to support the transportation formation. He had a feeling the saint stones supporting the transportation formation did not come from the lower province of the Dalmartial Saint Land. Just a mere third grade and quasi-third grade saint stones would not be able to support this transportation formation. This transportation formation has been here ever since the Dalmartial Saint Land split into two. At that time, this transportation formation was built under the leadership of a reclusive senior who was at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Those who were involved were above the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Not only that, but there were more than 10 of them as well. When Elder Lu spoke, his voice was filled with veneration. The 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Whether it was Duan Ling Tian, Ji Yu Li or Zhu Lu Qi, they could not help but gasp when they heard his words. What was the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Such a powerhouse already had one of his feet in the Devata realm. In the Dalmartial Saint Land, those who were at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage were also known as half-celestial by the commoners because they already had one foot in the Devata realm. It was said that once the powerhouses at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage managed to survive the celestial ascension calamity and ascended to the Devata realm, they would become a true celestial being and overlook the commoners. Just by hearing about the people involved in the building of the inter-province transportation formation from Elder Lu, Duan Ling Tian and his two companions could just imagine how huge the scale of the project was. It was due to the combined hard work of the predecessors that brought about the convenience for the later generations. Just as the saying went, a generation plants a tree where the later generations would be able to rest under. For this reason, Duan Ling Tian was filled with great admiration when he thought about those powerhouses. As for the saint stones needed to support the inter-province transportation formation, all of them are the responsibility of all first-rate forces in the upper province, including the first-rate force I'm from. 90% of the saint stones inside are first-grade saint stones while the remaining 10% are quasi-celestial grade saint stones. Elder Lu continued to add. 90% of them are first-grade saint stones. Duan Ling Tian gasped. Ji Yu Li and Zhu Lu Qi were stunned as well. Elder Lu, are the quasi-celestial grade saint stones more valuable than the first-grade saint stones? Duan Ling Tian asked solemnly. Yes. Elder Lu nodded before continuing to say, the quasi-celestial grade saint stones usually comes from quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserves. Naturally, first-grade saint stone reserves would sometimes produce some of them. The first-rate forces in the upper province usually control 1 to 2 first-grade saint stone reserves. How about the 3 great sects then? Duan Ling Tian asked as his eyes flashed. In the Dalmartial Saint Land, the 3 great sects stood above the first-rate forces. They were the strongest forces in the upper province of the Dalmartial Saint Land. The 3 great sects. Upon hearing Duan Ling Tian's question, a hint of anger momentarily flashed across Elder Lu's eyes. The 3 great sects have already monopolized the only 3 quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserves in the upper province of the Dalmartial Saint Land. Moreover, they even monopolize no fewer than 20 first-grade saint stone reserves. Although that's the case, they still demand first-rate forces to supply the saint stones needed to support the inter-province transportation formation. They refuse to contribute even a single saint stone. Elder Lu became angrier and angrier as he spoke. This could also be considered as his true thoughts as a member of a first-rate force in the upper province of the Dalmartial Saint Land. It was only natural for him to be angry. The 3 great sects had been exploiting others all these while, but people from the first-rate forces did not dare to speak up and show their anger at all. As a member of a first-rate force, Elder Lu took this chance and vented the accumulated anger in his heart. Duan Ling Tian, Ji Yu Li, and Zhu Lu Qi frowned upon hearing his words. The 3 great sects have gone too far. They have so many first-grade saint stone reserves and even the quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserves, but to think they're not even willing to part with a single saint stone to support the inter-province transportation formation. What, do they want to keep their saint stones so that it can be buried with them when they die? Ji Yu Li was burning with righteous indignant. Duan Ling Tian and Zhu Lu Qi, on the other hand, remained calm. Although they also felt the 3 great sects had gone too far, who could they blame since the great sects were stronger than the first-rate forces? This was a world where the strong ruled. If those first-rate forces were in the great sects' shoes, they would also exploit those weaker than them. Chapter 1885. No matter how many grudges Elder Lu had because of the injustice done to the first-rate force he was from, he could only vent his anger in front of Duan Ling Tian and his 2 companions at most. Although it would not change the situation, he felt much better after venting because he had finally released all his pent-up frustrations. Go. Be careful when you arrive at the upper province, for it's far crueler than what you've imagined. It's best for all of you to look for sect join and rely on. The death rate of sectless cultivators are the highest in the upper province, Elder Lu reminded them solemnly as Duan Ling and his two companions stepped into the inter-province transportation formation. Many years ago, when the Dao Martial Saint Land had not split into two, the overall strength of the Dao Martial Saint Land was not as powerful as it currently was. Then, when it was split into two, the upper province, a pseudo-standalone realm, had a better cultivation environment and cultivation resources in comparison to the lower province. Due to the limitation of cultivation resources, the powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land at that time had competed to enter the upper province. The forces above third-rate forces also began to enter one after another. Due to this reason, the upper province flourished and was filled with strong people. Duan Ling Tian's father, Duan Rufeng, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, had a cultivation base at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. When he cast some of his techniques, his strength was comparable to a powerhouse at the early quintessential saint stage. Moreover, he was also widely acknowledged as one of the two strongest men in the lower province. Such a person could be considered as remarkable. However, if such a person lived in the upper province, he would not be considered as remarkable at all, even though he would not be considered as too bad. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the rankings of Martial, Dao, and Devil cultivators were directly ranked on the Supreme Saint ranking. The Supreme Saint ranking was already a well-established ranking before the Dao Martial Saint Land was split into the upper province and lower province. Duan Ling Tian's master, the person known as the Sword Saint by the commoners, the successor of the Seven Absolute Sect's first absolute, Fog Rain, Feng Qingyang, was once ranked first on the Supreme Saint ranking. The person ranked first on the Supreme Saint ranking was widely acknowledged as the strongest person in the entire Dao Martial Saint Land. It was the highest honor one could get. Ever since the Dao Martial Saint Land was split into two, the powerhouses ranked on the Supreme Saint ranking had always been powerhouses from the upper province. None of the powerhouses in the lower province, even Duan Rufeng or Dugu, managed to place in the ranking, not even in the last place. Even that person, Elder Xiezong from the Black Kshetra sect, who was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse, was not even in the top 500 of the Supreme Saint ranking. One could see just how many undiscovered talents were hidden in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. No matter what, Xiezong was still a Black Kshetra sect's elder. However, it was still difficult for him to enter the top 500 in the Supreme Saint ranking. There were many powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land, that was why it was so dangerous. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Lu. Duan Ling Tian and his two companions knew a little about the situation in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. When they heard Elder Lu's reminder, their expressions turned grave immediately. Go. Elder Lu glanced at the inter-province transportation formation and told Duan Ling Tian and his two companions, every time the inter-province transportation formation is activated, it'll only last for 15 minutes at most. The three of them nodded their heads before flying in, entering the inter-province transportation formation almost at the same time. The moment they entered the inter-province transportation formation, Duan Ling Tian felt as though a gentle energy had enveloped him. As soon as this energy enveloped him completely, everything turned dark without warning. When light reappeared again, he discovered he was standing on a passage formed by a translucent barrier. The passage was long and stretched out as far as the eyes could see. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, a piercing noise resonated in Duan Ling Tian's ears. As it turned out, there were electrical snake-like energies that were running amok outside of the translucent barrier that formed the passage. Occasionally, some of the energies managed to bypass the barrier. However, as soon as they entered the barrier, their forces were greatly reduced. Even then, in its weakened state, it would still be impossible for those below the Eminent Saint stage to survive. Only those at the Eminent Saint stage or above could deal with this. Duan Ling Tian dodged the energy that managed to sneak past barrier as he thought to himself, is this the spatial turbulence that we have to go through when we're traveling between realms? The reason he knew about this was due to Elder Huo explaining to him about traveling between realms and spatial turbulence prior to this. According to Elder Huo, the spatial turbulence one encountered while traveling between low-level realms in the mundane realms would not be too powerful. Strong powerhouses could easily dismiss these energies. If some measures were put in place, for example, the transportation formation, it would weaken the energy from the spatial turbulence that managed to enter the spatial transfer passage that even an eminent saint stage powerhouse could easily deal with it. The place Duan Lingtian was at now was a spatial transfer passage from the lower province to the upper province. The tunnel-like passage that was formed by a translucent barrier had blocked most of the energies from the spatial turbulence. Although Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was at the peak of the eminent saint stage, due to the existence of the Sun true origin, based on the energy on his body alone, he was in no way inferior to a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage. For this reason, it was easy for him to travel through the spatial transfer passage. Ji Yuli was an early divine saint stage martial cultivator. He followed closely next to Duan Lingtian. He was as relaxed as Duan Lingtian. There was no need to mention Zhu Luqi, whose cultivation base was higher than theirs. He already had 1 foot in the mastery exemplary saint stage, so the weakened energy from the spatial turbulence did not bother him at all. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The three of them looked at each other without saying anything and came to a tacit agreement. In the next moment, they charged to the other end of the passage at their fastest speed. Nobody knew how much time had passed. It felt like seconds, but at the same time, it felt like a century had passed. While they were flying forward, Duan Lingtian discovered his body was enveloped by the gentle energy again. Just like before, everything before his eyes turned dark. When light reappeared again, he discovered he was standing in a huge garden of herbs. The reason he knew he was in a herb garden was due to the fresh and pleasant smell of herbs. As he studied his surroundings, he noticed a lot of spirit medicines planted in every corner of the garden. Whoosh, whoosh. When Duan Lingtian was still studying his surroundings, he heard 2 sounds of wind whistling next to him. As it turned out, it was Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi. Both of them were stunned when they discovered they were standing in a garden of herbs. So many spirit medicines. The upper province is really amazing. Zhu Luqi was astonished. In the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the place where spirit medicine grew was very harsh. Even if one wanted to plant it, the soil needed to be suitable for it to grow. That kind of soil was very rare and valuable in the lower province. For this reason, they knew the soil here was the very valuable spirit soil. So much spirit soil, and so many spirit medicines. We're rich, we're going to be rich. At the same time, Ji Yuli regained his senses and stared at the vast expanse of spirit soil and spirit medicines with shining eyes. It was as though he was about to gain possession of all these. Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi, on the other hand, turned solemn instead as they looked at each other. There were hints of anxiety and worries in their eyes. Senior brother Ji Yuli, these spirit soil and spirit medicines must have an owner. Otherwise, they wouldn't have grown in such an orderly fashion. Not only that, someone who owns such a huge garden of herbs in the upper province is not someone we can easily offend. Duan Lingtian reminded Ji Yuli in a faint voice. Upon hearing that, Ji Yuli began to study the spirit medicines in the surroundings carefully. Soon after, he discovered the spirit medicines were indeed planted in an orderly manner. Moreover, the gap between each spirit medicine was precise as well. Ji Yuli's expression immediately turned solemn as well. Indeed, there really is an owner, damn it. Where did we teleport to? The inter-province transportation formation in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land was fixed at one place, but the ones in the upper province were fixed at various places. Nobody could be sure where they would be transported to in the upper province. The only thing that was certain was those who stepped into the transportation formation together would be sent to the same place. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian quickly rose up into the air and motioned to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi to leave. He feared that if they continued to stay here, the owner would be furious when he found them there. No matter if the herb garden belonged to a single person or a sect, they could not afford to offend anyone at all. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's light order, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi, who knew this place was like a time bomb, also instantly rose into the air without any hesitation. Just as their energies surged from their bodies, and they were about to leave the herb garden at their fastest speed. Since you're all here, there's no need for you leave. A voice resonated in the air suddenly. The voice sounded old, and its tone brooked no arguments. In the next instant, Duan Lingtian felt a wave of energy that landed on him like a mountain. Boom! At this moment, the horrifying energy also suppressed the Sun true origin that was surging out of Duan Lingtian's body, sending him crashing down to the ground violently. Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi were in a similar situation as well. Chapter 1886. After they crashed to the ground, horror dawned on Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi. Before the owner of the voice had even shown himself, he had already made them fall in such a wretched manner. Even a powerhouse at the peak of the quintessential saint stage might not be able to do so. It was very likely the person who had spoken was a saint celestial stage powerhouse. When both of them thought about how they had offended a saint celestial stage powerhouse the moment they arrived in the upper province, terror rose in their hearts as horror filled their eyes. "Senior, we didn't mean to offend you, we didn't mean to trespass into your garden as well." Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and calmed the chaotic vital energy and blood in his body before said to the air politely, "We've just arrived from the lower province. After we enter the inter-province transportation formation, we were sent here. I swear that we didn't touch a single plant at all since we got here." Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Ji Yuli quickly said, "That's right, senior. After we realized this herb garden has an owner, we immediately decided to leave this place since we didn't want to cause any trouble. Since we didn't mean to offend you, could you please let us leave, senior?" Although Zhu Luqi remained quiet, a hint of anticipation could be seen in his eyes. It was not that he was unwilling to speak. However, the words he wanted to say had been said by Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli. Although they had spoken, they did not receive a response. Three of them immediately looked at each other with a wry smile and anxiety in their hearts. The powerhouse was able to cause them to fall in such a wretched manner without even revealing himself. This was enough to prove his strength was not something they could fight. Even if I unleash all my techniques and use the Jasper Celestial Sword, it'll still be impossible for me to be a match for this powerhouse. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. From the lower province. After a long while, the ancient-sounding voice sounded again. It sounded as though he was interrogating them. "Senior, we're really from the lower province. If we didn't suddenly appear in your herb garden but came in from outside, you would have discovered us based on your ability," Ji Yuli said as he tried to flatter the owner of the voice. "Since all of you trespassed into this place by accident, I can't blame you for it, so I'll spare your lives." The ancient-sounding voice said again. Duan Lingtian and the other two sighed in relief when they realized their lives were safe. The other person could have easily killed them with his strength. "In that case, we bid goodbye to you, senior." Duan Lingtian and his two companions stood up. Ji Yuli even respectfully cupped his hands together in front of his chest. Without waiting for the powerhouse to respond, he rose into the air. Boom! However, the moment Ji Yuli rose into the air, he was sent crashing down again by the same energy that had appeared out of nowhere. It angered him a little. "Senior, didn't you say that you don't blame us and will spare our lives? With your strength and identity, you won't go as far as to joke with us, right?" It seemed as though Ji Yuli was complaining when he spoke. Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi could not help but frown as well. The powerhouse who was concealing himself would not go back on his words, right? However, they were powerless to do anything even if the powerhouses decided to go back on his words. After all, even if three of them joined forces, it was not even enough to leave a scratch on the powerhouse. "I said that I don't blame you, and I'll spare your lives. However, since you're sent here by the inter-province transportation formation, this means that you're fated to meet me. As it happens, a few workers who tend to this garden for me had died sudden unexplained deaths a few days ago. For this reason, all of you will help me tend to this garden for the time being. You can leave as you like after I find new workers," the ancient-sounding voice said. Duan Lingtian and his two companions were horrified when they heard the powerhouse's words. He wanted them to stay back and tend to his garden. Not only that, but his workers had died sudden unexplained deaths. From his tone, it seemed like he wanted them to remain behind to become his workers. "What? You're unwilling? If you're unwilling, I'll send you to the otherworld right now," the voice said coldly. Then, he changed his tone and said, "Don't be so ungrateful. You've just arrived at the upper province. If you stroll about casually outside, nobody knows when you'll be killed. If you stay in my herb garden, apart from being safe, the cultivation environment here is much better than it is outside. Many people want to cultivate here, but I've rejected them." It seemed like the powerhouse decided to use the carrot and stick approach. When they heard the first half of the sentence, Duan Lingtian and his two companions were horrified. They knew it was impossible to leave even if they were unwilling to tend to the garden. When they heard the second half of his words, they instinctively sensed the heaven and spirit energy here. They quickly discovered that the heaven and earth energy here was indeed very rich. It was far richer that it could not compare to the lower province at all. However, since they had not gone anywhere else in the upper province, they did not know whether the cultivation environment here was better than it was outside. Duan Lingtian, who was sensing the heaven and earth spirit energy, soon discovered that the heaven and earth spirit energy here resonated with the spirit medicines in the herb garden. The aura that was occasionally released by the spirit medicines also fused with the heaven and earth spirit energy, making it even richer. It seems like he didn't lie to us, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Even if that was the case, Duan Lingtian did not intend to remain here to cultivate even if the cultivation environment here was the best in the upper province. He did not want to stay here for a second longer if possible. The reason he had left the lower province and came to the upper province was to look for his fiancé and daughter who were imprisoned in the fire worship sect. What he wanted to do was to go to the fire worship sect to save his fiancé and daughter. Although with his current strength it was impossible for him to charge into the fire worship sect to save his fiancé and daughter, he planned to sneak into the fire worship sect and plan from there. He believed with his current strength, it would not be difficult for him to join the fire worship sect. However, if he was imprisoned here, he would not be able to go to the fire worship sect for the time being. Not only that, but he might even die here. How could go to Ka and his daughter's rescue if he died? After all, according to the owner of the herb garden, the previous workers had died suddenly without any explanation. If one worker died without any explanation, it might just be a coincidence. However, a few workers had died abruptly without any explanation. It made one wonder if the problem lay with the herb garden or its owner. Senior, Duan Lingtian spoke to the air after he took a deep breath. The reason I came to the upper province is due to an urgent business I have here. If you're willing to let us leave, I, Duan Lingtian, will be forever grateful and return this favor in the future. We'll owe you a favor as well, Senior, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi chimed in. Although they had no particularly urgent business here, they knew it would not be good for them to work here and tend to the garden. If it was possible, they wanted to leave as soon as they could. For some odd reason, they felt that the owner of the herb garden was a little strange. Especially when he spoke about his previous workers who had died sudden unexplained deaths. Chills ran up their spines immediately when they thought about how they might follow in those workers' footsteps. I know what you're thinking. The previous workers haven't even entered the eminent saint stage yet, they couldn't endure the rich heaven and earth spirit energy in the herb garden after spending some time here. In the end, all of them exploded and died after staying here for 10 years. The herb garden's owner still did not reveal himself, but his voice resonated clearly in Duan Lingtian and his two companions' ears. With your cultivation base, it won't be a problem for you to stay for 10 years. After 10 years, I'll naturally let all of you leave. Alright, it's decided then. If I find out any of you dare to escape before 10 years are over, don't blame me for not showing any mercy. After that, the voice no longer spoke. No matter how loud Ji Yuli yelled, the herb garden's owner no longer responded. It was as though he had gone away. In the end, Ji Yuli could only look at Duan Lingtian helplessly and ask, Junior brother Lingtian, what should we do now? What else can we do? Since he has already said such words, we can only obediently remain here for the time being. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. Among the three of them, he was definitely the most eager to leave this place. He was desperate to go to the fire worship sect to rescue his fiancé and daughter. Who knew when the sect leader of the fire worship sect would come out of closed-door cultivation? At that time, his fiancé and daughter's lives would be in danger. The moment he thought of this, his heart burned with anxiety. However, in this current situation, what use was there even if his heart burned with anxiety? The strength of the herb garden's owner was not something they could go against. It was impossible for them to leave by force. For this reason, they could only go with the flow and see if they could find a chance to leave. Let's stay for now. Who knows, we might find a chance to leave in a few days' time. Zhu Luqi transmitted his voice to Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli's ears, and they nodded. Currently, this was all they could do. They had no choice at all. For this reason, Duan Lingtian and the other two remained in the herb garden. Initially, they thought nothing of the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the herb garden, but after staying for some time, they realized that these spirit grasses and spirit medicines were not low-grade ones. In fact, even Elder Huo said if these spirit grasses and spirit medicines were given to him, he would be able to completely repair the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Even with the help of the entire Azure Cloud Mansion, he only managed to restore a small fraction of the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Elder Huo, you're not mistaken, right? These spirit grasses and spirit medicines are not in the list of materials you told me before, Duan Lingtian grumbled to Elder Huo. This was because he felt as though Elder Huo was trying to get him to steal all of the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the herb garden. My strength has recovered a little more now. If these spirit grasses and spirit medicines are refined by my Sun True Origin, they can be transformed into the purest state of energy and be used to repair the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Elder Huo replied. When Duan Lingtian heard this, he only smiled wryly. Even so, I can't touch even one plant here at all. If I did, I'll definitely die without a doubt. Even senior brother Ji Yuli and Palace Master Zhu would be implicated as well. Chapter 1887. Duan Lingtian had long noticed that the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the herb garden was not simple. However, even so, he did not dare to have any covetous thoughts toward the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the herb garden at all. This was because the owner of the herb garden was a powerful being who seemed to be at the Saint Celestial stage. Although it was impossible for him to keep an eye on the herb garden at all times, with Duan Lingtian's current strength, it was impossible for him to tell when the owner of the herb garden was watching them. It would just be like playing with fire if he coveted the spirit grasses and spirit medicine in the herb garden. It was fine if he was lucky and did not get caught. However, he would definitely die if he was caught. Moreover, it might even implicate Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi as well. I'm sure you know about the benefits the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda will bring you, right? Aren't you tempted? Elder Huo's voice resonated again. If he was subtly egging Duan Lingtian on earlier, currently, he was directly egging him on. Upon hearing Elder Huo's words, Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. Elder Huo, naturally, I know the benefits the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda will bring me. I've dreamed about restoring the 4th level as well. However, I really can't touch the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in this herb garden at all. Duan Lingtian's voice was tinged with a sense of helplessness when he spoke. Why? Elder Huo asked. Duan Lingtian said, although I've not seen the owner of the herb garden until now, based on the technique he cast previously, I can tell he's most likely at the Saint Celestial stage or above. With his strength, I won't be able to tell when he's watching us. Who knows when he's watching us? If I take this risk and lose, not only would I die, but it might even implicate senior brother Ji Yuli and Palace Master Zhu. Even if he didn't catch me stealing the spirit grasses and spirit medicines, he'll definitely suspect us when he finds them missing. He shook his head when he reached the end of his sentence. It's not difficult to solve the problems you just mentioned, Elder Huo said after a moment of silence. You can do this. Then, Elder Huo told Duan Lingtian about his plan. Upon hearing that, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed immediately. His expression was grave as he asked, Elder Huo, isn't this too risky? If he didn't fall for our trick, not only would senior brother Ji Yuli, Palace Master Zhu, and me fail to escape, but we would be killed for angering him. Don't worry, this plan is foolproof with me around. Elder Huo replied determinedly. Duan Lingtian did not respond for a long time, so Elder Huo knew he still felt skeptical. Think about this carefully. This chance is hard to come by. If you miss it, it'll be impossible for you to find another chance to repair the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda in such a short period of time in the future. Besides, if this plan is a success, apart from having the whole garden of spirit grasses and spirit medicine to yourself, you and your companions would be able to escape from this place as well. Don't tell me you plan on staying here for 10 years. You might be able to wait, but will your fiancé and daughter be able to wait that long? Elder Huo further tempted Duan Lingtian with his words, causing Duan Lingtian's mind to be in chaos. He had mentioned Ka's situation to Elder Huo before, so Elder Huo knew about the matter. Elder Huo, I believe in you. After listening to Elder Huo, Duan Lingtian, who felt skeptical, could only clench his teeth as he decided to go with Elder Huo's plan to steal all the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the herb garden. Not only that, but they could seize this opportunity to escape the evil grasp of this person who seemed to be at the Saint Celestial stage. As the saying went, fortune favors the bold. Along with Elder Huo's help, Duan Lingtian felt their success rate was quite high. As for how Elder Huo said that the plan was completely foolproof, he did not really believe it at all. After all, nobody could tell what would happen in the future. If they made a mistake during the critical moment, they would lose everything. Although I believe in you, Elder Huo, it doesn't mean Senior Brother Ji Yuli and Palace Master Zhu will believe me. After all, this matter is related to our lives, so we can't afford to be careless. Duan Lingtian said. I'm sure they won't reject you if you're confident enough, Elder Huo replied. He had faith in Duan Lingtian. I don't want to make any promises, but I'll try my best. Just because Elder Huo was confident in Duan Lingtian, it did not mean Duan Lingtian felt confident. Due to this reason, he did not promise Elder Huo anything. However, to Duan Lingtian's surprise, after he told Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi about Elder Huo's plan, both of them instantly agreed to it. As long as you can find out when he's not watching us, this plan will work, Zhu Luqi replied. I think it'll work as well, Ji Yuli chimed in. There are no plans that are completely foolproof. Although the plan seems to have no flaws, who can guarantee there won't be any problem that arises later? Both of you must think about this carefully, Duan Lingtian responded. I've thought this through. Rather than being imprisoned here for 10 years, I'd rather take this risk. Not only that, but if you know when he's not monitoring us, then our chances of escaping will be high. Zhu Luqi added again. That's right, although it's risky, I still want to take this risk. Ji Yuli agreed with Zhu Luqi. Since both of you agree to it, we'll carry out our plan tomorrow, Duan Lingtian said without beating around the bush when he saw Zhu Luqi and Ji Yuli's determination despite his warning. Sure, all right, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi nodded in agreement. They did not have any objections. Not only that, but there was a hint of excitement in the depths of their eyes as they looked forward to tomorrow's plan. That night, Duan Lingtian discussed the details with Elder Huo and finalized every step of the plan. No mistake is allowed in tomorrow's plan. Only when midnight arrived did Duan Lingtian stop his discussion with Elder Huo. He was determined to give it his all tomorrow to avoid any mistakes. When the sky turned bright, the day had finally arrived. He has withdrawn his divine consciousness. The plan starts now. Duan Lingtian, who was originally tending to the spirit grasses and spirit medicine, obediently suddenly heard an ancient voice resonating in his ears. It was Elder Huo's voice. Now, upon hearing Elder Huo's words, Duan Lingtian immediately transmitted his voice to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi, ordering both of them to make their moves. Soon after, 3 of them made their moves and disappeared from their spots. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, gusts of cold wind blew across the herb garden. It was Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions moving around in the herb garden. The spirit grasses and spirit medicines were all rooted from the ground in their wake. They were like a swarm of locusts. Every once in a while, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi would pass all the war trophies in their hands to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had suggested this since he had a method of storing the spirit grasses and spirit medicine into a place that was not a spatial ring. It was the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Naturally, he did not tell Ji Yuli or Zhu Luqi anything about the 7 Treasures Exquisite, nor did he mention that he could hide those spirit grasses and spirit medicines without being found out. He merely said he had a way to destroy all the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the herb garden without the owner of the herb garden discovering anything. This was the first step of the plan. If they did not complete the first step, they would not be able to proceed to the second step. With their strength, it only took them 15 minutes to uproot all the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in the huge herb garden. The herb garden was in a mess when they were done. Senior, it's a disaster. The spirit grasses and spirit medicine have all been stolen. After Duan Lingtian and the 2 others looked at each other, Ji Yuli called out loudly to the owner of the herb garden. His tone was filled with anxiety. One had to say he put on a good show. Ji Yuli's voice was originally loud, coupled with the divine saint stage energy, it immediately alerted the herb garden's owner. It was at this moment that Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions finally saw the owner of the herb garden. The herb garden's owner was a plain-looking old man who looked slightly like a sage from afar. However, at this moment, the old man's eyes were red as he stared at the mess in his herb garden. His face began to twitch. It was clear he was furious. Senior, that person has escaped to the south. Perhaps you'll be able to catch him if you go after him now. Duan Lingtian, Ji Yuli, and Zhu Luqi looked at the old man anxiously and urged him on. At this moment, they were covered in dust and dirt as though they had been attacked. After the old man took a deep breath, he looked at Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions. Remove the ownership of your spatial ring and hand it over. The old man did not listen to Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions' urgings. Instead, He ordered them to hand their spatial rings over. He spoke hurriedly as though he was anxious to get his hands on their spatial rings. Naturally, this was because he wanted to make sure the disappearance of the spirit grasses and spirit medicine had nothing to do with Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions before he chased after the culprit who had stolen his spirit grasses and spirit medicines. Upon hearing the old man's words, Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions frowned. However, the old man's gaze was as sharp as knives. They had no choice but to remove their ownerships off their spatial rings before handing it over to the old man. After receiving the spatial rings, the old man extended his powerful divine consciousness and began to search Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions to make sure they did not have any other spatial rings on them. Then, he proceeded to perform blood ownership claim on the 3 spatial rings. When he discovered there were no spirit grasses or spirit medicines from his herb garden in the spatial rings, his expression turned grim immediately. Humph! As he snorted coldly, the old man removed the ownership from the 3 spatial rings and handed it back to them before he immediately flew toward the south. In just a blink of an eye, the old man disappeared before their eyes. However, he suddenly appeared at a corner where he was hidden from 3 of them as he stared at them coldly. Chapter 1888. He's hiding and watching the 3 of you. As the old man hid himself and watched Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions, Elder Huo's voice rang in Duan Lingtian's ear in a timely manner. Duan Lingtian instantly transmitted his voice to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi. Start acting now. Acting. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, whether it was Ji Yuli or Zhu Luqi, both of them were momentarily stunned. The powerhouse who stole the spirit grasses and spirit medicines earlier really possesses a very fast speed. From the beginning until the end, I didn't even realize what was happening, and he has already stolen all the spirit grasses and spirit medicine, Duan Lingtian said as he looked at Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi with an expression of disbelief and confusion on his face. It was as though someone had really stolen the spirit grasses and spirit medicines. It's a good thing we didn't try to stop him or else we would have been sent flying. Judging by his expression, I'm afraid he would have killed us if we tried to stop him. Ji Yuli said with a fearful expression on his face. He's really strong. I wonder if the owner of this herb garden is a match for him. If he can't catch up to him, I'm afraid all of the spirit grasses and spirit medicines will be gone. Zhu Luqi chimed in. Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions continued talking as though they did not know someone was eavesdropping on them. Their words sounded so genuine that the old man who was hiding believed their words and finally felt at ease. In the next instant, he instantly flew in the south direction. Whoosh! The old man's figure flew out and left a heavenly trail in the sky. His speed was terrifyingly fast. How many years has it been since someone dared to anger me, Sun Ying? No matter who you are, you'll die for touching my things. The old man's eyes shone coldly. Sun Ying. If someone from the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land heard this name, they would be shocked. The Medicine King, Sun Ying, was a famous powerful sectless cultivator in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Apart from being a quasi-celestial grade saint refinement master who specialized in medicine Dao, he was also a sectless cultivator who was ranked in the top 300 on the Supreme Saint ranking. Although that was the case, it did not cross Sun Ying's mind that he had been fooled by the 3 fellows who came from the lower province. He was fooled because he did not expect Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions could sense his divine consciousness and knew he was hiding. Sun Ying was very confident of his own strength. Naturally, this was because it did not cross Sun Ying's mind that Duan Lingtian had someone like Elder Huo helping him. If he had known about Elder Huo, he would have made Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions swear on the lightning penalty oath instead of simply monitoring them on his own to see if they would steal things that had been entrusted to them. When one's strength had reached Sun Ying's stage, it would be a habit for them to do things on their own. The lightning penalty oath would not be the first thing to come to their minds unless they had no other choice. Duan Lingtian would have been caught if this was not the case. The instant Sun Ying left, Elder Huo informed Duan Lingtian about it. Duan Lingtian instantly gestured to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi to leave. He has already left to the south. He won't be back for the time being. Let's head west at our fastest speed. Let's travel for a month before we decide what to do next. Sure. At this moment, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi both looked to Duan Lingtian and waited for his instruction. After 3 of them rose into the air, they flew west without even looking back. They did not dare to stop even for a moment. It's a good thing the old fellow only checked our spatial rings and hid in the dark to eavesdrop on us. If he had asked us to swear on the lightning penalty oath, all of us would have died. Ji Yuli said while they were traveling. He felt really lucky. Indeed, Zhu Luqi expressed his agreement. After listening to Ji Yuli's words, he broke out in cold sweat. It was indeed a close call. However, I think it did not even cross his mind that we would uproot all the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in his herb garden when he wasn't watching us. I'm sure he didn't expect junior brother Lingtian is able to tell that he was hiding or that we were acting, Ji Yuli said as he looked at Duan Lingtian with admiration in his eyes. That's right, Zhu Luqi also nodded. Up until now, Zhu Luqi still could not figure out how Duan Lingtian was able to find out when the owner of the herb garden was not watching them. He did not think Duan Lingtian was able to sense the divine consciousness of the herb garden's owner. His cultivation base and divine consciousness were stronger than Duan Lingtian, but even he could not detect the divine consciousness of the owner of the herb garden at all. However, since Duan Lingtian did not say anything about it, he and Ji Yuli were sensible enough to not question him about it. Everyone had their secrets after all. Duan Lingtian did not speak at all as he listened to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi's exchange. Their words made him break out in cold sweat since he was also worried about this matter before this. Elder Huo, why are you so certain he wouldn't make us swear on the lightning penalty oath? Duan Lingtian could not help but ask Elder Huo. Previously, he had voiced his concern to Elder Huo. He was worried the owner of the herb garden would make them swear on the lightning penalty oath. However, Elder Huo was confident the owner of the herb garden would not make them swear on the lightning penalty oath. He had reassured Duan Lingtian so that he would go ahead with the plan. Although Duan Lingtian felt slightly anxious, he decided to take the risk. In the end, it had paid off. He had successfully escaped from the owner of the herb garden. Earlier, he was too happy that he had momentarily forgotten about this. When he heard Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi's words, he was reminded about his earlier concern which prompted him to question Elder Huo. It's because of the mindset of a strong powerhouse, Elder Huo replied. The mindset of a strong powerhouse? Duan Lingtian was puzzled. To the owner of the herb garden, 3 of you are merely ants to him. If he wants information from 3 of you, there's no need for him to rely on the lightning penalty oath, Elder Huo said before he asked. Try to imagine this. If you're in his shoes, would you even think of asking 3 people whom you think of as ants to swear on the lightning penalty oath? Duan Lingtian fell silent for a moment when heard this. He tried putting himself in the position of the owner of the herb garden. He discovered he would also rely on his own strength and would not rely on the lightning penalty oath. He did not expect I'll have someone like Elder Huo to help me. He'll definitely regret his decision. When Duan Lingtian regained his senses, he understood what Elder Huo meant by the mindset of a strong powerhouse. They were arrogant and looked down on others due to their confidence in their own strength. Moreover, who would ever expect that you possess the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda and can store the stolen goods in there? Elder Huo smiled. No matter what, it's all thanks to you that we managed to get out of trouble, Elder Huo. Thank you. Duan Lingtian sincerely expressed his gratitude to Elder Huo. Although he was the owner of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, and he could be considered as Elder Huo's master since he was the pagoda spirit of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, he had never regarded Elder Huo as his subordinate. From the beginning until the end, he had always treated Elder Huo as his senior. As it turned out, he had made the right decision. Due to this reason, Elder Huo had always helped him unreservedly and did not keep things to himself. During the 10th day when Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions were traveling west, Sun Ying who made his way south still did not catch the person who had looted from his herb garden. Moreover, he did not find any traces of the person at all. Don't tell me this person's strength is not inferior to mine. Sun Ying stood in the air and looked below him with a terrifyingly grave expression on his face. As he thought more about it, he felt that it was impossible. There were only about 200 people in the entire upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land whose strength was not inferior to his strength. Apart from that, they were all famous powerhouses on the Supreme Saint ranking. It was impossible for those people to stoop so low and commit such a sneaky act. Moreover, in the eyes of these powerhouses, although the spirit grasses and spirit medicines that he planted were good, it was not enough for them to risk offending him. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, he was ranked 300th in terms of strength. However, in regards to medicine Dao, as a quasi-celestial grade Saint Refinement Master, he could be considered to be in the top 3 among all medicine Dao Saint Refinement Masters in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. It was not worth it for anybody to offend him just for spirit grasses and spirit medicines. Could it be that fellow who had done this? Sun Ying's gaze suddenly turned cold. Among his many rivals, there was only one man who was stronger than him. However, Sun Ying soon dismissed this possibility. Wait a minute, there are not more than 5 people in the entire upper province who are privy to the location of my herb garden. It's impossible for that person to do this. There's only one possibility left, something's not right with those 3 ants from the lower province. Sun Ying immediately turned around the moment he thought of this. When he returned to his herb garden, he discovered the 3 people whom he had regarded as ants had long left the herb garden. Moreover, despite his thorough search in the north, east, and west, he could not find any traces of the 3 men. At this moment, he was certain those 3 men from the lower province had escaped a long time ago. They actually ran away. Could they have done this as well? Killing intent appeared in Sun Ying's eyes. However, up until now, Sun Ying only knew 3 of them had escaped. He was uncertain if they were the ones who had stolen the spirit grasses and spirit medicines from his herb garden. First of all, he did not think the 3 of them would dare to do so under his watch since they could not sense when he was monitoring them. Secondly, he did not think they were acting when he had hidden himself and watched them since he did not think they could sense his presence. However, even if they did not steal the spirit grasses and spirit medicines, to think they actually dare to defy my order and run away. They'll definitely die if I encounter them in the future. Sun Ying sentenced 3 of them to death in his heart. Chapter 1889. Who's it? To think that person actually dares to loot from my, Sun Ying, herb garden. Damn it, damn it. Sun Ying still could not figure out who had looted from his herb garden even after he thought about it for a long time. His heart was filled with pent-up anger and frustration. He could only stomp his feet in anger in the end. He felt as though he was slapped by someone in the dark. He did not know how the one who slapped him was. He felt as though he had swallowed a bitter pill. The amazing medicine king, Sun Ying, had to suffer this humiliation in silence. If news of this spread out, it would cause an uproar in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions who had escaped from the herb garden was unaware that the old man who had imprisoned them was a famous person in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. If it was not for the fact that Sun Ying did not like to be restrained by rules, he would be able to obtain an extraordinary position if he went to one of the 3 great sects. He would even be greatly respected there. Perhaps, his strength would not benefit any of the 3 sects much. However, his achievement in the medicine Dao was something nobody could compare to. Duan Lingtian, Ji Yuli, and Zhu Luqi continued making their way west and only stopped after they had traveled for a month. During this 1 month, they had encountered many people who had wanted to kill them. There were many powerhouses in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land and these included the ruffians as well. In order to gain more wealth, these ruffians hid themselves to ambush and kill passers-by, looting the belongings of passers-by. However, most of the ruffians they encountered were dealt with easily by Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions since their strength was only ordinary. There was only once when they encountered 2 troublesome ruffians who were intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivators. One of the intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivators even had 1 foot in the mastery exemplary saint stage. His strength was on par with Zhu Luqi. When they fought, they had come to a draw. Neither one of them could get the upper hand. When Zhu Luqi discovered he could not distract his opponent to deal with the other intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator, Zhu Luqi's expression turned grave immediately. It was only when he saw Duan Lingtian had transformed into the legendary dragon warrior and killed the other intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator in just a few moves that his expression brightened. Due to the fact that Duan Lingtian had killed one of the intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivators, his partner was distracted. Due to a moment of distraction, he was killed by Zhu Luqi whose strength was on par with him. It could be considered that he had died in vain. His strength was on par with Zhu Luqi. However, due to being distracted by his partner's death, he was killed by Zhu Luqi. Duan Lingtian's actually so strong. At that moment, Zhu Luqi realized he was not the strongest in their little group of 3. The strongest person was Duan Lingtian, a martial cultivator whose cultivation base was at the peak of the divine saint stage. It was 2 stages lower than his cultivation base. He was unaware that Duan Lingtian's true cultivation base was actually not at the peak of the divine saint stage but at the eminent saint stage instead. With my current strength, coupled with my ability when I transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior and all my other techniques, even an intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand more than a few moves from me. Compared to most mastery exemplary saint stage powerhouses, I'm stronger as well. It's as though my strength is at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. Duan Lingtian understood more of the strength he possessed after that battle. In an old city to the west of the upper province that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions found an inn to stay in for the time being. After that, they looked for a restaurant to have a meal and drink. Naturally, their main intention was not to eat and drink. When one's strength had reached Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions' stage, it would not affect one too greatly if one did not drink or eat. The reason they went to a restaurant was to find out where they were at. During this 1 month, they did not dare to rest at all. Due to this reason, they did not know where they were at this moment. 4 rough-looking middle-aged men were sitting near their table as they chatted. One of them suddenly said, "Hey, did you hear? The Devilseal tablet has appeared again." The Devilseal tablet, didn't it appear 5 years ago in the lower province? Many people from the upper province had gone to the lower province, but they all came back empty-handed, another one of the men chimed in. "I've heard this news as well. Rumor has it that the Devilseal tablet is in the possession of a young man. However, he seems to have disappeared without a trace," another man said. "Your news is outdated. Not too long ago, the young man who possessed the Devilseal tablet reappeared in the lower province. As it turns out, he's the young mansion master of a quasi-third-rate force, the Azure Cloud Mansion," the 4th man in that group said. "Azure Cloud Mansion, I've heard of it before. It's a top-tier force in the lower province and Mansion Master Duan Rufeng is also a rare genius. However, I can't believe the young man who possessed the Devilseal tablet previously is the young Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion." Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised when he heard their discussion. He did not expect that people from the upper province knew who his father was. The Azure Cloud Mansion is a top-tier force in the lower province, but it is nothing in the upper province. Since the young man's identity has been exposed, I'm sure he won't be able to hold on to the Devilseal tablet for long. "You're right, that Devilseal tablet has been snatched by Elder Xie Zong from the Black Kshetra sect." "Xie Zong, wow, he really acted fast. Then, this means the Devilseal tablet is in the Black Kshetra sect's possession now." When Duan Lingtian listened to the 4 men's discussion, he was reminded of the incident that had taken place in the Azure Cloud Mansion. He remembered vividly how bloodthirsty and arrogant Elder Xie Zong from the Black Kshetra was. Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave immediately. Upon seeing this, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi looked at each other. However, they remained silent. They knew it would be pointless for them to say anything. It was better for them to remain silent. Perhaps, Duan Lingtian would return to normal faster that way. As the topic of discussion changed, Duan Lingtian's expression gradually relaxed. "I heard the saint girl who was lost after she was appointed by the saint sect has been found." A faint voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears and attracted his attention. This was because he knew the saint sect the person was talking about was the fire worship sect. The fire worship sect was referred to as a saint sect because this was the western region of the upper province, and the western region was the territory of the fire worship sect. Due to this reason, the fire worship sect was also referred to as a saint sect in the western region. Whoever came to the western region would refer the fire worship sect as a saint sect. After Duan Lingtian learned that he was in the fire worship sect's territory, he could not help but sigh emotionally. He did not expect he would arrive in the western region, the fire worship sect's territory, so soon after he had arrived in the upper province. The saint sect's saint girl who was lost. Duan Lingtian raised a brow as his heart jolted. Ka. When he was still in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, he had heard from his father that Ka seemed to have been appointed as a saint girl by the sect leader of the fire worship sect a long time ago. Nobody knew how she appeared in the Cloud Continent. Ever since then, the fire worship sect had sent their men out to look for Ka everywhere, including the lower province, but it resulted in nothing. Ka was only found when her twin sister found her in the Cloud Continent and took her back. Yes, she has been found. However, I heard that because she had been raised outside, she had acted immorally and given birth to a daughter. Currently, the enforcement hall is waiting for the sect leader to come out from closed-door cultivation before they decide what to do with the mother and daughter. Acted immorally, aren't your words a little harsh? As far as I know, the saint girl was an infant when the sect lost her. In other words, she didn't know she's the saint girl of the saint sect. How's it possible for her to know that she had to keep her chastity intact? Shish, don't be so loud. If the saint sect's enforcement hall finds out you've spoken such words, they won't let you off. Humph, I'm merely stating the truth. The faint voices entered Duan Lingtian's ears and made his expression turn grave again as a hint of concern appeared in his eyes. He was still worrying about the safety of both mother and daughter when he heard the following words. The saint sect will start recruiting elite disciples in a month. This only happens once every 3 years. I wonder what kind of reclusive genius the saint sect is going to discover this time around. A voice reverberated from afar, causing Duan Lingtian to be stunned before an idea appeared in his mind. The fire worship sect would recruit for elite disciples a month later. And it only happened once every 3 years. Duan Lingtian's breathing quickened immediately. His eyes gleamed as though he was a starving wolf that had found its prey. Senior brother Ji Yuli. Duan Lingtian looked at Ji Yuli. Just as he was about to say something, Ji Yuli interrupted him. I'll accompany you. What are you two talking about? Zhu Luqi was baffled when he heard Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli's words. Soon after, he learned from Ji Yuli that the saint girl who was lost was Duan Lingtian's fiancée, and her daughter was Duan Lingtian's daughter. He was stunned, and he finally understood what Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli's words meant. It was clear Duan Lingtian was going to use this opportunity to enter the fire worship sect, and Ji Yuli planned to accompany him. Since both of you are going, I'll go as well, Zhu Luqi said to Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli after a moment of silence. Previously, he might have traveled with Duan Lingtian and Ji Yuli for safety reasons. However, after everything they had gone through together in the herb garden, he had already regarded himself as a member of this small team. Chapter 1890. The religion of the fire worship sect was the fire that humans relied on to survive. In the western region of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the fire worship sect was the people's religion. Every 3 years, the fire worship sect would recruit elite disciples from outside, and this had become a tradition in the western region. When the fire worship sect was recruiting elite disciples, it would be the busiest time in the western region. This was because, during that time, all martial, Dao, and devil cultivators who were confident in their own strength from every corner of the western region would swarm in great numbers and gather at the fire worship sect's four symbols sanctum to seek a chance to become a disciple of the fire worship sect. In their opinion, becoming a disciple of the fire worship sect was the highest honor. Naturally, the fire worship sect only recruited elite disciples. They would not just simply recruit anyone. Only those who had passed the assessment by the fire worship sect could enter the fire worship sect and become a disciple. The assessment for the recruitment of elite disciples from fire worship sect was very tough as well. There were many who died during the assessment. Even so, many people still flocked there and took the chance as though they were not afraid of death at all. Although they knew about the risk, they still marched directly toward it. The people in the western region are crazy. In the sky above a mountain range, Ji Yuli watched the figures that entered the mountain before him in throngs. He could not help but clicked his tongue. Haven't you noticed the mindset of the people in the western region yet? More than 70% of the people here regard the fire worship sect as their religion. If you dare to say anything bad about the fire worship sect in front of these people, they would fight with you. Zhu Luqi shook his head. During this 1 month, he had become accustomed to the unusual. Humph. What elite disciples do they want to recruit? What a good way to word it. They're merely recruiting outer disciples for the four symbols sanctum. If you really want to enter the fire worship sect's saint land and become true elite disciples, you still need to rely on your own strength. Ji Yuli snorted and grumbled with dissatisfaction. The fire worship sect's estate was divided into 2 great districts. One of the districts was the fire worship sect's saint land that was located on a quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserve. It was surrounded by rich heaven and earth spirit energy all year round and was the best cultivation place in the fire worship sect. Even in the entire upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, it was considered a top-tier cultivation place. However, not everybody could enter the fire worship sect. If one wanted to enter the Saint Land, one must have the permit issued by the fire worship sect's four symbols sanctum. Usually, those who obtained the permit were those who were unusually strong with high innate talent or outstanding Saint Refinement Masters, Dao Talisman Masters, and Saint Inscription Master. Just like that Medicine King, Sun Ying, who had imprisoned Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions. If he wanted to enter the fire worship sect, not only would he immediately obtain the permit to enter the Saint Land, but he might even be summoned and welcomed by the sect leader of the fire worship sect. Sun Ying's strength was nothing before the sect leader of the fire worship sect, who was ranked in the top of the supreme saint ranking. However, his achievement in the medicine Tao was enough to garner respect from the sect leader of the fire worship sect. In the history of fire worship sect, there were many people who did not obtain the permit to enter the Saint Land in their entire lives, even though they had successfully become outer disciples of the fire worship sect's four symbols sanctum. Based on this, one could tell how valuable the permit to the fire worship sect's Saint Land was. The four symbols sanctum, have both of you decided which sanctum you're going to go to? Duan Lingtian asked Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi, who were traveling next to him, when he saw they were fast approaching the mountain range. Upon hearing that, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi looked at each other before they shook their heads. Junior brother Lingtian, why don't you decide? Ji Yuli told Duan Lingtian, I'm not familiar with the fire worship sect, so I don't know which sanctum to choose. Me too, Zhu Luqi chimed in. Well, I don't know much about the fire worship sect as well. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly when he saw both of them were looking to him for directions. Duan Lingtian inwardly cursed them for being lazy when he saw Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi's anticipatory gazes. However, he still decided for them in the end. Well then, let's randomly pick one then. How about the Azure Dragon Sanctum? Azure Dragon Sanctum, it was one of the four symbols sanctums in the outskirt of the fire worship sect. Other than the Azure Dragon Sanctum, there were also the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, the White Tiger Sanctum, and the Black Turtle Sanctum. Sure, I have no objections. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's decision, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi nodded in agreement. It did not matter to them which sanctum of the four symbols sanctums they entered. After all, they were all going to be fire worship sect's disciples. In that case, it's decided then. Let's head to the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Duan Lingtian nodded. He had chosen the Azure Dragon Sanctum because he had an affinity with the word dragon. Apart from the fact that people in his past lives were known as descendants of dragons, he could also transform into a dragon warrior. It seemed like he had fate with dragons. Due to this reason, he had chosen the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Humph, 3 bumpkins. As soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, a condescending voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears. It was obvious the words were directed at them. What did you say? Ji Yuli said angrily as he instantly turned to look at the source of the voice. Zhu Luqi shifted his attention there as well. Duan Lingtian had a frown on his face as he shifted his attention over. With just a glance, he saw a young man looking at them arrogantly. His gaze as he looked at them was filled with condescension, as though he was superior to them. He was skinny and plain-looking. However, the look of superiority in his eyes and his fine clothing gave him the appearance of a good-for-nothing rich kid. There was also an old man standing behind him. The old man had both his hands clasped behind him. From afar, he seemed ordinary. However, Duan Lingtian knew it was impossible for this old man to be ordinary. He must be strong, otherwise, Duan Lingtian would have been able to see through him. What did I say? The finely dressed young man looked at Ji Yuli and sneered. Are you deaf? Did you not hear me calling you a bumpkin earlier? I really wonder what bumpkins like all of you are doing here. If you really manage to enter the fire worship sect, won't you just be an embarrassment to the fire worship sect? If I were you, I'd turn around and leave so I won't embarrass myself. When he reached the end of his sentence, his tone turned even more mocking as disdain filled his eyes. Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave immediately. Zhu Luqi's expression turned grave as well. You're seeking death. As for Ji Yuli, he could not contain his anger. Various expressions fleeted across his face as he made his move. Swoosh. His displayed his strength that was almost at the intermediate divine saint stage as his energy swept toward the finely dressed young man. You're so weak, but you actually dare to make a move against me. Faced with Ji Yuli, who was charging toward him fiercely, the finely dressed young man smiled disdainfully. He made his move as well as he flicked his hand. Boom! A loud explosion sounded as Ji Yuli and that finely dressed young man collided. The result of their collision was clear. Ji Yuli was sent flying. As for that finely dressed young man, his body merely trembled for a moment before he managed to stabilize his body. Barf! Ji Yuli, who was sent flying, threw up blood immediately. He looked extremely wretched as he was sent flying. When he looked at the finely dressed young man again, fear could be seen in his eyes. He did not expect this young man, who appeared like a good-for-nothing rich kid, would be stronger than him. Is this what the upper province is like? I'm not even comparable to a good-for-nothing rich kid. Bitterness rose in Ji Yuli's heart as he questioned his decision of coming to the upper province. You're seeking death. Zhu Luqi's expression turned grave when he saw Ji Yuli was injured. He instantly made his move. Whoosh! He charged toward the good-for-nothing rich kid. Zhu Luqi was an intermediate exemplary saint stage powerhouse whose cultivation base was almost at the mastery exemplary saint stage. For this reason, the speed he currently displayed was not something Ji Yuli could compare to. Not only that, faced with Zhu Luqi's speed, even the finely dressed young man did not have time to dodge. His expression changed dramatically. An exemplary saint stage powerhouse. This was the only thought left in the good-for-nothing young man's mind. Although his expression had changed drastically, there was no hint of fear in his eyes at all. It was as though he knew he was protected. Duan Lingtian had already noticed this. Don't tell me he's so fearless because of the old man standing behind him. Humph. Seeing how Zhu Luqi's attack had almost landed on the good-for-nothing rich kid, a snort that contained a powerful energy sounded. Although they were standing far apart, Duan Lingtian was horrified by the pressure from the energy. Watch out! Duan Lingtian cried out at the critical moment. He had discovered that the old man who was standing behind the good-for-nothing rich kid had subtly made his move. Duan Lingtian instinctively cried out to warn Zhu Luqi. However, he was still too late. Bang! The old man seemed as though he did not make any move. However, Zhu Luqi's attack that was about to land on the good-for-nothing rich kid was instantly nullified. Not only that, but there was a crisp sound as Zhu Luqi's body was also sent flying backward. Similar to Ji Yuli, he threw up blood as well. Q quintessential saint stage powerhouse. Zhu Luqi, who was sent flying in a wretched manner, was horrified when he was sent flying. It was impossible for a powerhouse at the peak of the exemplary saint stage to injure him to such a state without any warning. There was only one possibility. His opponent was a quintessential saint stage powerhouse. Horror dawned on Ji Yuli as Duan Lingtian's expression changed dramatically. What? You're finally afraid? Upon seeing the expressions on their faces, the grave expression on the good-for-nothing rich kid disappeared as his eyes gleamed terrifyingly. He ordered the old man behind him, Elder Dang, kill them. Chapter 1891, Elder Dang, kill them. Upon hearing the good-for-nothing rich kid's words, Duan Lingtian and his two companions' expressions turned grave immediately. They did not expect this good-for-nothing rich kid would be so cruel. It was just a small dispute, and he did not suffer any losses, and yet, he still wanted to kill them. Duan Lingtian looked at the good-for-nothing rich kid as his eyes gleamed piercingly. Currently, he had already begun to activate the Sun True Origin in his body. He was ready to activate his dragon energy and transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. Not only that, but he planned to use his Jasper Celestial Sword as well. Naturally, even if he used his Jasper Celestial Sword, he was not confident in going against the old man who was at the quintessential saint stage. After all, the Jasper Celestial Sword relied on the Sun True Origin in his body, and transforming into a dragon warrior did not give any boost to his Jasper Celestial Sword at all. He could only rely on the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, at most. With the help of the elementary devouring tactic, my Sun True Origin should be able to rise to a stage close to the mastery exemplary saint stage for a short time. If this old man is only an early quintessential saint stage powerhouse, I'm confident I can kill him with the help of the Jasper Celestial Sword. However, if he's an intermediate quintessential saint stage powerhouse, I'm only 30% confident I can kill him. If he's a powerhouse at the mastery quintessential saint stage or above, it'll be impossible for me to kill him. At this moment, various thoughts ran through Duan Lingtian's mind. However, no matter what, this man needs to die. When Duan Lingtian looked at the finely dressed young man, killing intent shone in his eyes. Even if the old man made his move to kill them, whether he was able to kill the old man with the Jasper Celestial Sword or not, he would use this good-for-nothing young man as his shield. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's merciless side began to show itself. Second young master, we're right outside of the fire worship sect's 4 symbols sanctums. When the old man heard the good-for-nothing rich kid's order, he frowned a little. He did not make a move. Instead, he transmitted his voice to the young man. As a quintessential saint stage powerhouse, he had good eyesight, so he already noticed the 4 symbols sanctums, disciples who were patrolling around the area. Not only that, it seemed like the disciples had already noticed the commotion and were making their way over. The four symbol sanctums of the fire worship sect. Upon hearing the old man's words, a hint of dread could be seen in the good-for-nothing rich kid's eyes. He immediately looked at Duan Lingtian and his two companions before he mocked them with a nasty expression on his face. "You three bumpkins, count yourself lucky. If this isn't the territory of the fire worship sect's four symbol sanctums, all of you would have died today. Not only that, but let me warn you. It's better for you if you give up on joining the fire worship sect. Otherwise, I, Yang Wu, will definitely torment all of you until you die." After saying such fierce words, the good-for-nothing rich kid called Yang Wu brought the old man away and entered the estate of the fire worship sect's four symbol sanctums. At the same time, other than Duan Lingtian, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi sighed in relief at surviving the disaster. However, Ji Yuli's expression quickly turned grim as he looked at Duan Lingtian and smiled wryly. "Junior brother Lingtian, do you think I should have just obediently stayed in the lower province?" Duan Lingtian shifted his gaze from Yang Wu and that old man to Ji Yuli. "Why? Initially, I thought my innate talent and strength are not too bad. However, after we arrived in the upper province, we were imprisoned. And now, I can't even compare to a good-for-nothing rich kid. Should I have just stayed obediently in the lower province and compete to become the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion instead?" Ji Yuli smiled bitterly. He felt the upper province was filled with danger. "Senior brother Ji Yuli, I'm sure Yang Wu must have an extraordinary background for daring to act so arrogantly in the fire worship sect's four symbol sanctums. For this reason, you don't have to compare the current you to him. After all, the cultivation resources you've enjoyed previously are not comparable to his. On the other hand, he's actually not much stronger than you are." Duan Lingtian consoled Ji Yuli as he shook his head. "Little brother, you're right. Yang Wu is the second son of the fifth elder from the Northern Plethora sect, a first-rate sect in the north of the western region. From young, he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. It's impossible for people with ordinary background to compare to him." At this moment, one of the few people who was standing in the distance reminded them with good intention. "If I were you, I'd give up on entering the fire worship sect just as Yang Wu has said. After he has entered the fire worship sect, in addition to having a powerhouse protecting him, his elder brother is also a fire worship sect's disciple. It's said that his elder brother has already entered the Saint Land and became a true elite disciple of the fire worship sect. His elder brother must be even stronger than the powerhouse protecting him." Soon after, another person warned Duan Lingtian and his two companions. "Not only that, but when all of you reach the four symbol sanctums, it's not like you'll get to pick the sanctum you like. Everyone will be split up. You'll have to go to whichever sanctum you're sent to. Perhaps, all of you will be lucky enough to have all three or two of you sent to the same sanctum. However, there's also a possibility of the three of you being sent to three different sanctums." Duan Lingtian and his two companions finally learned why Yang Wu had called them bumpkins earlier. However, since the situation had escalated to this extent, this was no longer important. After a while, the few spectators left. Only Duan Lingtian and his two companions were left in this area. In the sky far away, the patrolling disciples from the four symbol sanctums had left as well when they saw the commotion had died down. "So he's actually the son of an elder from an upper province's first-rate force. To think I doubted myself because of him. Come to think of it, I was really behaving ridiculously." Ji Yuli mocked himself. Even so, his eyes gleamed confidently. As long as he managed to enter the fire worship sect, he was confident he would be able to defeat Yang Wu and trample on him in the near future. After all, Yang Wu grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, but he was not much stronger than him. "Junior brother Lingtian, Palace Master Zhu, let's go to the four symbol sanctums." Ji Yuli motioned to Duan Lingtian and Palace Master Zhu to leave. He took the lead and leapt across the range of mountains as though he had been injected with a boost. At this moment, he was eager to join the fire worship sect as soon as possible and use the fire worship sect's resources to quickly raise his strength. Only then would he be able to catch up to Yang Wu and surpass him. Currently, his number one goal was to work hard and surpass Yang Wu. Duan Lingtian understood how he felt. However, before he chased up to Ji Yuli, he first looked at Zhu Luqi and said, "Palace Master Zhu, the fire worship sect seems to be more dangerous than what we've imagined. Perhaps, you..." "What? Both of you young men are not afraid, don't tell me this old man is afraid." Zhu Luqi interrupted Duan Lingtian. Naturally, he knew what Duan Lingtian wanted to say. He was going to advise Zhu Luqi and ask him to leave. The moment Zhu Luqi finished speaking, he did not wait for Duan Lingtian's response as he flew away to chase after Ji Yuli. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. He knew that he had wasted his breath. He instantly chased after them as well. Is this the Black Turtle Sanctum of the Four Symbols Sanctums? After going through the range of mountains, the first thing that entered Duan Lingtian's sight was a stretch of buildings. As he looked down on these buildings, he discovered a fire was lit on top of all of the buildings. Not only that, but it was apparent these flames were specially arranged to form the shape of a gigantic black turtle. The fire worship sect's Four Symbols Sanctum would recruit a group of disciples every 3 years. As it turned out, it was the Black Turtle Sanctum's turn to host the people who came to participate in the recruitment. After everyone who came to participate in the recruitment gathered at the Black Turtle Sanctum, the people from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and Vermilion Bird Sanctum would also come to recruit some of the participants. They would pick the recruits and bring them back to their sanctums to undergo the assessment. Only those who passed the assessment would become the sanctum's disciples. This was the reason all the participants were gathered at the Black Turtle Sanctum. So many people. After Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions had arrived at the Black Turtle Sanctum, they saw the sea of people before them. There were at least several thousands of people. Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions were inconspicuous in the midst of the sea of people. However, there were still some people who noticed them. Tisk tisk, looks like 3 of you bumpkins won't give up until all hope is lost. I hope 3 of you will put on a good show and pass the assessment of the Four Symbols Sanctum so you can become my playthings. At that time, I'll play with you and slowly torment all of you to death. Yang Wu said with a sneer as he brought the old man with him and appeared before Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions. His tone was filled with condescension and arrogance. When he finished speaking, his eyes even gleamed with killing intent. Ji Yuli's expression turned grave. Zhu Luqi's eyes shone coldly. Idiot! Duan Lingtian spat out a word indifferently in a neither hurried nor slow manner. His word was sharp. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's word, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi felt a sense of joy and satisfaction. However, they felt a little worried for his safety as well. Both of them instantly moved closer to Duan Lingtian as they looked at the old man standing behind Yang Wu with a hint of dread in their eyes. As expected, the moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the old man's expression turned grave while his gaze became as sharp as a knife. Why you actually dare to call me an idiot? At the same time, Yang Wu, who was stunned by Duan Lingtian's insult, regained his senses. He stared at Duan Lingtian as though he was seeing a ghost. He had lived for so long, but this was his first time being called an idiot to his face. Why you're seeking death? Yang Wu became furious after a moment of speechlessness. A terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes as his body moved forward to charge at Duan Lingtian like a gust of wind. The old man behind him immediately used his energy to lock Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi in place to prevent them from helping Duan Lingtian. As for Duan Lingtian, since he looked so young, the old man did not think he was a match for his young master. Duan Lingtian smirked coldly and was about to make a move against Yang Wu when a thunderous voice sounded above the Black Turtle Sanctum, causing the entire place to fall silent. How dare you? At the same time, a horrifying energy appeared in between Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu out of nowhere and exploded without warning. Chapter 1892. Boom. Although the energy that exploded in between Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu was terrifying, it was extremely gentle, particularly toward Duan Lingtian who had yet to make his move. For this reason, Duan Lingtian was merely sent stumbling backward a few steps without suffering any injuries. On the other hand, Yang Wu's energy that was sweeping at Duan Lingtian collided with that terrifying energy, causing him to suffer a huge injury from the backlash. He was sent flying into the distance. Barf. As he was sent flying, Yang Wu's internal organs quivered as he threw up a mouthful of blood. It splattered in the sky like dark red roses, quavered as he threw out a huge mouthful of blood. Second young master. The old man who was following Yang Wu no longer bothered with Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi. He instantly flew out and helped Yang Wu to stabilize his body. Whoosh. At the same time, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, an old man with a huge build appeared nearby. He was dressed in a white long robe embroidered with a flaming black turtle. His body was sturdy and tall. He looked like a sturdy tower as he stood there. At the same time, many people gasped while others exclaimed, "It's a silver flame elder." The white robe the sturdy old man was wearing was embroidered with flames and a black turtle that was silver in color. It appeared particularly eye-catching. This was also the trademark of the fire worship sect's Silver Flame Elder. The elders in the fire worship sect were divided into 3 different ranks. They were Bronze Flame Elders, Silver Flame Elders, and Golden Flame Elders. Among these 3, the Golden Flame Elders had the highest position and were the elite high-ranking officials in the fire worship sect. In the Black Turtle Sanctum, only the sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum was a Golden Flame Elder. Based on this, one could see how rare a Golden Flame Elder was. This proved how extraordinary the position was in the fire worship sect. The Silver Flame Elder came after the Golden Flame Elder. In the Black Turtle Sanctum, there was a total of 5 Silver Flame Elders, and each of them was an elite powerhouse in the Black Turtle Sanctum. They were all strong powerhouses who had already entered the Saint Celestial stage and were ranked in the top 300 of the Supreme Saint ranking. If one wanted to become a Silver Flame Elder in the fire worship sect, one must fulfill 2 conditions. First, one must be loyal to the fire worship sect. Second, one must be ranked in the top 300 of the Supreme Saint ranking. The most important condition was the second one. Based on this, one could tell how powerful a Silver Flame Elder was. Among the crowd, a middle-aged man who was dressed like a scholar said solemnly, "Judging by his huge build, if I'm not mistaken, this Silver Flame Elder must be Elder Tang Shan from the Black Turtle Sanctum." Elder Tang Shan. Many people instantly began to discuss in a low voice. Elder Tang Shan is ranked at the 173rd place on the Supreme Saint ranking. Even among the 5 Silver Flame Elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum, his strength is ranked in the top 3. I can't believe Elder Tang Shan actually personally came out. It seems like these 2 people are in trouble now. Elder Tang Shan is famous for having a hot temper. To think they actually dared to fight in the Black Turtle Sanctum. This is like asking for trouble. As the people discussed among themselves, many of them looked at Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu with a hint of pity in their eyes. That person seems a little familiar. Isn't he the second son of the 5th Elder from the Northern Plethora sect? Soon after, someone recognized Yang Wu, the second son of the 5th Elder from the Northern Plethora sect. Many people instantly shifted their attention to Yang Wu. Some of them who had seen him before immediately recognized who he was. It's really him, Yang Wu, the second son of the 5th Elder from the Northern Plethora sect. It's said that Yang Chong, the 5th Elder of the Northern Plethora sect, is best friends with Lian, the first Silver Flame Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum. Elder Lian is a Silver Flame Elder who is even more powerful than Elder Tang Shan. Looks like the person who fought with Yang Wu is doomed. More and more people began to look at Duan Lingtian sympathetically. Naturally, Duan Lingtian also heard the discussion. It caused him to frown a little as his heart jolted. The expressions on Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi's faces, on the other hand, turned completely grave. In their opinion, as a Silver Flame Elder from the Black Turtle Sanctum, Elder Tang Shan must be on the same side with Elder Lian. Coupled with the fact that Lian was stronger than him, he had to consider Lian's reputation as well. Not to mention Lian and Yang Wu's father were best friends. Elder Tang Shan was most likely on Yang Wu's side. Everyone present on the scene, including Yang Wu, thought this Silver Flame Elder, Tang Shan, would take his side, but to everyone's surprise, he glared at Yang Wu and said angrily, "To think you actually dare to make a move in the Black Turtle Sanctum. How bold of you." As his voice sounded, a wave of awe-inspiring soundwave and aura shrouded Yang Wu, causing him to be even more injured. Once again, he threw up a mouthful of blood as his face turned pale. A hint of horror immediately appeared in Yang Wu's eyes. This Tang Shan actually did not show any consideration for Elder Lian at all. Perhaps, he did not hear the discussion in the surroundings and did not know who he was. At the same time, an uproar broke out immediately. Nobody expected Tang Shan to make a move against Yang Wu. This was completely beyond their expectations. What's going on? Elder Tang Shan actually punished Yang Wu. Does he not know who Yang Wu is? Elder Tang Shan must not have heard our discussion and doesn't know who Yang Wu is. Otherwise, even if he doesn't care for Yang Wu's father, he would still have to take Elder Lian into consideration. I think so as well. The crowd discussed among themselves and reached their own conclusion. Duan Lingtian, Ji Yuli, and Zhu Luqi shared the same thought as the others as well. The old man beside Yang Wu had the same thought with everyone else. He thought Tang Shan was unaware of Yang Wu's identity, so he immediately reminded him by saying, "Elder Tang Shan, this is second young master Yang Wu, the second son of the 5th Elder, Yang Chong, of the Northern Plethora sect." He continued to say in case Tang Shan was unaware of the relationship between Elder Lian and their fifth elder, Elder Lian from the sanctum of your sect is our fifth elder's best friend. I'm sure you must have heard about it as well, Elder Tang Shan. So what? However, to everyone's surprise, Tang Shan's expression remained unchanged even when he heard the old man's words. He said indifferently, no matter who you are, you still need to obey the Black Turtle Sanctum's rules. Even if it's Elder Lian's biological son, I won't show any mercy as well if he breaks the rules of the Black Turtle Sanctum, let alone the son of Elder Lian's friend. I believe that if Elder Lian is present on the scene, he'll agree with me as well. Tang Shan's righteousness had taken many people by surprise. Elder Tang Shan seems like a good person, Ji Yuli whispered as he sighed in relief. Zhu Luqi nodded. Duan Lingtian glanced at Tang Shan. The hints of dread in his eyes had vanished, and it was replaced with admiration. Put everything else aside, just Elder Tang Shan's righteousness alone had already earned his respect. Elder Tang Shan's right. At this moment, another ancient-sounding voice reverberated in the air and attracted the crowd's attention. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, a skinny old man appeared. This old man was wearing the same robe as Tang Shan. He was also a silver flame elder. Upon seeing this person, Yang Wu's eyes lit up as he called out, clearly pleasantly surprised, Uncle Lian. Everyone present on the scene instantly regained their senses. This silver flame elder was none other than Lian from the fire worship sect's Black Turtle Sanctum. Lian was also the most powerful silver flame elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Ever since Lian appeared, his expression remained neutral. There was no expression of joy nor anger. Although he had heard Yang Wu's greeting, he only looked at him indifferently and ignored him. Yang Wu frowned upon seeing this. Previously, Uncle Lian had never been so cold to him. Little Wu, don't worry. Uncle Lian will make sure you're satisfied with the outcome of today's incident. Yang Wu was feeling a little unhappy in his heart when a voice rang in his ear. He could tell the voice belonged to Lian. The dark clouds in his heart vanished immediately and were replaced with a sense of excitement instead. Uncle Lian was on his side no matter what. Elder Tang Shan, just as the saying goes, it takes two to quarrel. You've punished Yang Wu, isn't it time for you to punish the other party? Lian asked as he looked at Tang Shan. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately turned to look at Duan Lingtian. His eyes were filled with killing intent when he looked at Duan Lingtian, causing him to feel as though he had been targeted by a poisonous snake. At the same time, horror dawned him. Lian wants to kill me. At this instant, Duan Lingtian had also realized how naive he was. He had thought Lian was as righteous as Tang Shan was when he heard Lian's words earlier. However, judging by the current situation, it was apparent Lian was different from Tang Shan. Elder Lian, Yang Wu was the only one who made a move. Tang Shan frowned. He did not make a move against Duan Lingtian even though Lian told him to. The energy he had unleashed earlier in between Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu just now had another use apart from stopping the fight. It proved who made a move first. Whoever activated their energies would be injured by his wave of energy instead. Earlier, Yang Wu was the only who was injured. Duan Lingtian remained unharmed. This meant Yang Wu was the only one who violated the Black Turtle Sanctum's rules. Due to this reason, he did not plan to punish Duan Lingtian. Elder Tang Shan, I've just said that it takes two to quarrel. Since you're not going to punish him, leave this matter to me then. Lian's expression turned grim when he heard Tang Shan's words. He raised his hand and slapped it in Duan Lingtian's direction. Boom! The air instantly trembled. A vast and terrifying energy rushed toward Duan Lingtian. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian felt as though he was being suffocated. The energy that had charged toward him was extremely terrifying. It locked him in place. He could not move at all. No, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as an expression of unwillingness appeared on his face. He was 100% certain he would die if this wave of energy landed on him. Chapter 1893. Everything happened in just a blink of an eye. Nobody expected Lian would make a killing move against Duan Lingtian. Elder Lian, it did not cross Tang Shan's mind as well that Lian would make such a vicious move. Horror dawned on him as he instantly moved to stop Lian. However, his strength was slightly weaker than Lian, coupled with the fact that Lian made the first move, he only managed to block half of Lian's energy while the other half landed on Duan Lingtian. Bang! Despite the force of the energy being reduced by half, it was still a critical hit to Duan Lingtian. When it landed on him, he instantly felt a heart-wrenching pain. It was so painful he almost lost consciousness. No, I can't pass out, I can't pass out. Duan Lingtian used all his might to stay conscious. It was only when the pain numbed a little that he managed to overcome it by force. After he used the Sun True Origin to heal his wound a little, Duan Lingtian finally relaxed. At the same time, he looked at Tang Shan and said with gratitude, "Thank you, Elder Tang Shan, for saving me." He's still alive. Whether it was Lian who had attacked Duan Lingtian or Tang Shan who had saved him, they were both shocked when they saw Duan Lingtian had survived. How's this possible? Lian had an expression of disbelief on his face. He knew clearly how much force he had used. His strike earlier, despite its force being reduced to half, was enough to kill any human martial, Dao, and devil cultivators below the Saint Celestial stage. However, the purple-clad young man before him did not die. He was filled with disbelief and so was Tang Shan. Although he managed to block half of Li An's strike, the remaining half of the force was enough to kill a human martial, Dao, and devil cultivator below the Saint Celestial stage. Don't tell me he's not human. Lian and Tang Shan immediately extended their divine consciousness and probed Duan Lingtian's entire body, making sure he was human. It was impossible for a human below the Saint Celestial stage to withstand the strike earlier and survive. However, after they finished probing, it was clear that Duan Lingtian was human. He's indeed human, but why is his body so strong? Both of them also noticed how abnormally strong Duan Lingtian's body was. It was to the point that it was comparable to the body of an ordinary divine saint stage wild beast or the true form of a divine saint stage saint body. In their opinion, this was something unbelievable. However, the truth was laid bare in front of their eyes. They could not refute the truth. They could only conclude that Duan Lingtian had a fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, it would be impossible for his body to be so strong. If my body was slightly weaker, I would have died from that strike. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. He had survived solely because of his tough body. Earlier, when Lian locked his body in place with his aura, not only could he not move, but it was difficult for him to mobilize the Sun True Origin in his body as well. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for him to transform into a dragon warrior. Although Duan Lingtian did not die, he suffered quite a heavy injury. At the very least, his injury was heavier than Yang Wu's injury. Elder Li An's strike earlier was too vicious. If Elder Tang Shan didn't make a move earlier, this young man would have died. That's right, judging by his injury, you can see how terrifying Elder Li An's strike was. Although Elder Tang Shan managed to block half of the strike, the remaining force almost killed him as well. I guess Elder Lian is on Yang Wu's side after all. It's to be expected. After all, Yang Wu is his best friend's son. The crowd regained their senses as the atmosphere began to buzz again. When they looked at Lian, there was a hint of dread in their eyes. When he had appeared earlier, he acted magnanimous and impartial. However, his action made them realize that not every Silver Flame Elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum was like Tang Shan. I almost died earlier. I've no enmity with Lian, but due to the small dispute I had with Lian, he actually wanted to kill me. Duan Lingtian raised his head and looked at Lian who was standing in the distance. Rage could be seen burning in his eyes. Sensing Duan Lingtian's gaze, Lian merely glanced at him indifferently before he turned away and ignored him. Although Duan Lingtian's body was abnormally strong, in Lian's eyes, he was just like an ant that he could easily step on. If Tang Shan did not intervene earlier, Duan Lingtian would have died. Lian, when Duan Lingtian saw Lian ignoring him, the flames of fury rose up in his heart even more. He hated Lian to the core. If he was stronger than Lian, he would have killed him at this instant even if it meant offending the fire worship sect and being pursued by them. Unfortunately, even if he used the Jasper Celestial Sword and unleashed all his strength, it would be impossible for him to kill Lian now. For this reason, he could only endure it. He would endure this and seek revenge in the future. Junior brother Lingtian, are you all right? At this moment, Ji Yuli who had regained his senses looked at Duan Lingtian with a worried expression. He did not expect Lian to be this shameless. He actually wanted to kill Duan Lingtian, someone who had yet to enter the fire worship sect. Zhu Luqi also looked at Duan Lingtian. Although he did not say anything, a hint of concern could be seen in his eyes. Elder Lian, even if he's at fault, it's not to the point where he deserves to die, right? Tang Shan asked coldly as he looked at Lian with a grim expression as everyone looked on. Of course, he doesn't deserve to die. Earlier, I had accidentally used too much force. It was not my intention to do so. Moreover, he's alive, right? Li Yan replied indifferently faced with Tang Shan's question. When Tang Shan heard Li Yan's shameless words, he was rendered speechless. Tang Shan was not the only one. Everyone present on the scene was speechless as well. It did not cross their minds that Elder Li Yan could speak so confidently even though it was clear he was telling a blatant lie. He's accidentally used too much force. I'm still alive. Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave again. He did not expect Li Yan to be this shameless. It was obvious Li Yan wanted to kill him, and yet, he refused to admit it. Since both of you have been punished, this matter can be considered as resolved. Li Yan glanced at Duan Lingtian indifferently before looking at Yongwu, who frowned upon hearing his words. In the next instant, he transmitted his voice to Yongwu. When Yongwu heard his voice transmission, his frown disappeared immediately. He quickly looked at Duan Lingtian with killing intent in his eyes. Elder Tang Shan, you don't have any objections, right? Li Yan asked as he looked at Tang Shan. Tang Shan shook his head. Since the matter had already escalated to this stage, what else could he say? Moreover, he had already punished the one who truly deserved it. Elder Li Yan. When Tang Shan shook his head, Yongwu looked at Li Yan before he said solemnly, today, I'd like to issue a death duel. I hope you'll be the witness to this death duel between me and him. Death duel. Upon hearing Yongwu's words, everyone instinctively turned to look at Duan Lingtian before they looked at Yongwu. They could see Yongwu's injury was almost completely healed while Duan Lingtian was still severely injured to the point where his face was still pale. Yongwu is really shameless. Many people began to rebuke in a low voice. At this moment, they all knew who Yongwu wanted to issue a death duel to. He even asked Li Yan to become his witness. They did not even need to use their brain to figure out his target was Duan Lingtian, who only had half his life left after being injured by Li Yan. Shameless. How shameless. Don't tell me Yongwu wants to have an unfair fight. Calm down. It's not set in stone. Even if Yongwu issues a death duel, he still needs the consent of his opponent. If his opponent declines, put aside Yongwu, even Li Yan could not touch this young man at all. The crowd discussed among themselves. They did not think Duan Lingtian would accept Yongwu's death duel invitation. In their opinion, put aside whether Duan Lingtian was a match for Yongwu when he was uninjured, unless he wanted to die, it was impossible for Duan Lingtian, who was currently severely injured, to accept Yongwu's death duel invitation. You want me to become the witness? Of course, I can. Li Yan agreed to it immediately before he asked, who do you want to issue the death duel to? Faced with Li Yan's question, Yongwu shifted his eyes to Duan Lingtian immediately. You trash. Do you dare to have a death duel with me? Although everyone present had already expected Yongwu to issue the death duel to Duan Lingtian, when they saw him issuing the death duel and calling him trash, they could not help but inwardly cursed him for being shameless. There were also people who cursed out loud. How can there be such a shameless person in this world? And this included Ji Yuli. Junior brother Lingtian, ignore him. That idiot only dared to issue a death duel when you're injured. Ji Yuli said to Duan Lingtian. He was worried Duan Lingtian would accept the death duel invitation. Heal your wound properly. You don't have to completely heal your injuries, but heal it a little more. Then it would be easy for you to kill him. Zhu Luqi said. In the next instant, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes at Yongwu as he asked in a slightly hoarse voice, did you just issue a death duel invitation to me? Chapter 1894. That's right. Yongwu nodded stubbornly. His eyes were filled with condescension as he looked at Duan Lingtian like a senior looking down at a junior. Naturally, you can decline. After all, you and your two companions are just like trash. Yongwu sneered as he shifted his attention to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi. Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi's expressions turned grim immediately. However, they knew that Yongwu was intentionally provoking Duan Lingtian, so they remained quiet. They were worried they would further enrage Duan Lingtian if they spoke. If Duan Lingtian was not so heavily injured, naturally, they had no doubts that Duan Lingtian would be able to kill Yongwu. Although Duan Lingtian was no longer on the brink of death like he was earlier, judging by his current situation, it was obvious he was still severely injured. Even Ji Yuli felt as though he could defeat the current Duan Lingtian, let alone Yongwu, who was much stronger than him. Death duel. Duan Lingtian was very familiar with death duels. Not only that, but if he did not take a moment to think about it, he would not remember the number of times he was engaged in a death duel. However, the fact that Duan Lingtian was still standing here meant that all his opponents had died. Today, Yang Wu, the son of the fifth elder from the Northern Plethora sect, a first-rate force in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, had issued a death duel invitation to him and even asked Elder Lian, the strongest Silver Flame Elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum, to become his witness. As expected, you're indeed trash. Just tell me directly if you're afraid to accept it. Why are you hesitating for? Yang Wu continued to look at Duan Lingtian condescendingly as he said arrogantly, don't tell me by hesitating you'll be able to muster your courage. Coward. Trash. Faced with something that can't even compare to trash, do you think you'll decline the challenge? Duan Lingtian finally spoke. Something that was not even comparable to trash. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, everybody's hearts jolted. Based on Duan Lingtian's word, he was planning to accept Yang Wu's death duel invitation. He's crazy. Many people gasped. They felt that Duan Lingtian had lost his mind. Don't tell me he's so strong that he can still defeat Yang Wu even though he's heavily injured. Some people who were quite strong were curious, so they extended their divine consciousness and probed Duan Lingtian's cultivation base. However, in the next instant, their expressions changed drastically. The peak of the eminent saint stage. How is this possible? My divine consciousness also detects that his cultivation base is at the peak of the eminent saint stage. My goodness, is he seeking death? A person at the peak of the eminent saint stage who's severely injured is planning to accept the death duel invitation issued by a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator who's at almost the peak of his health. Is he even sane? He's seeking death. When Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was exposed, a commotion broke out. Naturally, there were also people who remained calm as though they had already known Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was at the peak of the eminent saint stage. Apart from Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi, these few people were Yang Wu, Lian, and Teng Shan. No explanation was needed for Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi since they were Duan Lingtian's companions. They already knew about this since a long time ago. As for Yang Wu, he had heard about it from Lian. When Lian and Teng Shan were probing Duan Lingtian using their divine consciousness to check if he was human, they also discovered his cultivation base. For this reason, Lian had transmitted his voice to Yang Wu, suggesting that he humiliate Duan Lingtian by issuing a death duel invitation. As long as Duan Lingtian accepted the challenge, the incident today would definitely have a happy ending for Yang Wu and Lian. With this, Lian would have an explanation for his best friend when they meet in the future. It was all due to Lian's manipulation that things had escalated to this extent. Junior brother Lingtian, Duan Lingtian, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi were horrified as they turned to look at Duan Lingtian in panic. As soon as they were going to open their mouths to dissuade him, Duan Lingtian instantly interrupted them. Don't worry, I'm confident. Senior brother Ji Yuli, it's not like you've not seen me engage in death duels with other people. When we were still in the mystical sky mansion, didn't I kill Zhao Kun from the Zhao clan as well? How many people thought I would lose at that time? Duan Lingtian spoke very confidently. But now, Ji Yuli was about to remind Duan Lingtian he was injured and not at his best condition. Duan Lingtian interrupted him again. It's enough to kill Yang Wu. In the end, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi chose to believe in Duan Lingtian. Naturally, this was also their only option. They could see that Duan Lingtian was determined and there was no changing his mind. Elder Teng Shan, I hope you'll also be a witness to the death duel between Yang Wu and I. Otherwise, I'm afraid some old dog wouldn't be able to control himself and intervene when he sees that thing that's not even comparable to trash being killed by me, Duan Lingtian said to Teng Shan when everyone thought he had lost his mind. The entire place fell silent immediately. Some old dog. That thing that was not even comparable to trash. Many people looked at Lian and Yang Wu strangely when they heard this. Many of them also secretly gave Duan Lingtian a thumbs up. It was nothing special if Duan Lingtian had cursed Yang Wu, but Duan Lingtian actually cursed Lian, the #1 Silver Flame Elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum as well. Not only was it shocking, they felt that Duan Lingtian had given up and decided to leave everything up to fate since things had already escalated to this stage. That was probably the reason why he was acting so recklessly. Lian's expression turned cold. Although he knew Duan Lingtian was cursing him, he could not say anything since Duan Lingtian did not mention his name. If he had spoken up, would that not be akin to him admitting that he was an old dog? I'll definitely tear you into 1,000 pieces. Yang Wu looked at Duan Lingtian with terrifyingly cold eyes that were filled with killing intent. You've already made up your mind? Teng Shan asked in a deep voice. He did not think that this purple-clad young man was Yongwu's match. Even if he was not injured, he was merely at the peak of the eminent saint stage. Yongwu, on the other hand, was a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator. Yes, Duan Lingtian nodded. I hope that you can become my witness and ensure the death duel is fair, Elder Tang Shan. Don't worry about this. No third person is allowed to intervene in a death duel that's carried out in the Black Turtle Sanctum unless he wants to go against the entire four symbols sanctums in the fire worship sect. Tang Shan said as he looked at Lian. He still took to heart that Lian had doubted his judgment and punished Duan Lingtian. In the Black Turtle Sanctum, nobody was allowed to cause trouble or else they would be punished just like Yongwu was punished earlier. However, if it was a death duel, then the Black Turtle Sanctum would ensure its fairness. What's your name? Tang Shan asked Duan Lingtian as he looked at him before the death duel started. Although he did not think this young man was particularly strong, his courage, actions, and how he called Lian an old dog made him like Duan Lingtian. If it was possible, he really did not want this young man to die. However, since things had already escalated to this stage, it was already out of his control. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian responded with a smile. Good name. Tang Shan praised as his eyes shone brightly. Although news about the Devil Seal tablet appearing again had reached the upper province and many learned that the Devil Seal tablet was in the possession of a lower province's martial cultivator called Duan Lingtian, the Dao martial saint land was so big, it was normal for people to share the same name. Due to this reason, when Duan Lingtian revealed his name, it did not cause a commotion. Even if they learned Duan Lingtian was the one who used to possess the Devil Seal tablet, it would not cause a commotion since they all knew the Devil Seal tablet was currently in the possession of Elder Xiezong from the Black Kshetra sect. Before Duan Lingtian came to the fire worship sect, he had already changed his look using the disguising secret tactic. Although the changes were small, he looked like a completely different person. At the very least, it would be difficult for even his close friends and family to recognize him with just a glance. He did not plan to change his name even if he had changed his appearance. For this reason, when Tang Shan asked for his name, he immediately told him his real name. I've come across quite a lot of lunatics in my life, but this is my first time seeing such a lunatic. That's right, Duan Lingtian is the lunatic among all lunatics. Everyone can see he'll definitely die if he accepts Yongwu's death duel invitation. Even then, he still has the mood to ask Elder Tang Shan to be a witness. Perhaps, he just did not want to lose to Yongwu in terms of being domineering. The people present on the scene discussed heatedly among themselves. Although Duan Lingtian asked Tang Shan to be his witness and looked confident, nobody thought he could kill Yongwu. It was the same for Lian and Yongwu. Even if a person who was at the peak of the eminent saint stage was at his peak, it was still impossible for him to be a match for a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator, let alone the fact that he was severely injured. Trash is trash. Things have already escalated to this stage, but you still want to act mysterious. Yongwu smirked as he looked at Duan Lingtian disdainfully. Faced with Yongwu's disdain, Duan Lingtian no longer bothered with him. He only looked at him calmly and said, let's begin. Since you're seeking death, I'll fulfill your wish. Yongwu was infuriated when he saw how calm Duan Lingtian was. It was different from what he had imagined. He had imagined seeing Duan Lingtian afraid. He charged toward Duan Lingtian as soon as he finished speaking. You're merely at the peak of the eminent saint stage, but you dare to accept the death duel invitation my second young master issued. You're seeking death. The old man following Yongwu stood at the side and watched. He looked at Duan Lingtian as though he was a dead man. Junior brother Lingtian, Duan Lingtian. Although Jiu Li and Zhu Luqi could tell Duan Lingtian was confident, when they say how pale he was and how unsteady his body was, they were filled with anxiety. Chapter 1895. Trash. If there's a next life, remember to take a detour if you encounter someone strong like me. Otherwise, you'll just keep on dying no matter how many lives you have. Yongwu flew out like a gust of wind and soon arrived near Duan Lingtian in just a blink of an eye. His disdainful words resonated in the air, accompanied by a 3-foot-long blade. Whoosh! The 3-foot-long blade slashed across the sky and quickly transformed into a 7-foot-long sword ray. It felt dismal and cold as the energy wave swept toward Duan Lingtian as though it could pierce through everything. 100 inscriptions saint sword. Many people could tell the 3-foot-long blade in Yongwu's hands was a 100 inscriptions saint weapon when they sensed the dangerous aura it emitted. Its force would not have been so strong if it was not a 100 inscriptions saint weapon. Whoosh! At the same time, the air in within 100 meters around Yongwu began to tremble as he began to consolidate his territory. Duan Lingtian could clearly sense a heavy force enveloping him in this territory. It pressed down on him, further injuring him. His face turned even paler as he threw up a mouthful of blood. It was apparent that Yongwu's territory was the gravitational territory. Junior brother Lingtian. Ji Yuli was horrified when he saw Duan Lingtian throwing up blood and how pale he was before he even made his move. His eyes were as wide as saucers as he looked at Duan Lingtian. However, there was nothing he could do. He was so anxious that he almost destroyed his teeth as he gnashed them. Zhu Luqi was no better. He had a worried expression on his face. Die! Yongwu snarled loudly without warning. His body entered his gravitational territory with flash. He was not affected at all since it was his own territory. In just a blink of an eye, under the watchful eyes of the others, Yongwu walked in his territory with his sword like a sword god. When the sword god was enraged, blood would splatter for miles upon miles. Duan Lingtian's going to die now. The gap is too huge. They're at two completely different levels. Upon seeing this, many people shook their heads and sighed emotionally as though they had already seen Duan Lingtian die. You brute, to think you actually dare to curse me. Count yourself lucky. If I'm the one who personally makes a move, you'll die without a grave. Lian smirked, and his eyes flashed coldly as he looked at Duan Lingtian, who was about to be killed by Yongwu. Earlier, he was furious when Duan Lingtian had indirectly called him an old dog. If Duan Lingtian did not say it in such a roundabout way, he would have made his move out of rage and kill him. Naturally, he felt satisfied when he saw how Duan Lingtian was going to be killed by Yongwu. Tang Shan sighed as a hint of reluctance filled his eyes. Even he did not think Duan Lingtian was a match for Yongwu. He was about to look away since he was unwilling to see Yongwu kill Duan Lingtian and the scene of his blood splattering in the air. However, just as he was about to look away, the situation turned around. How's this possible? Tang Shan's eyes narrowed as he looked at Duan Lingtian and Yongwu with an expression of disbelief. Impossible. At the same time Tang Shan narrowed his eyes, horror dawned on Lian as an expression of disbelief appeared on his face as well. He could not believe what he was seeing. Under the gazes of Tang Shan and Lian, a whirlpool rapidly emerged around Duan Lingtian. The whirlpool churned as the energy in the surroundings was absorbed by him. During this process, Yongwu's gravitational territory shattered immediately. Swoosh! Although the gravitational territory was shattered, it did not affect the sword in Yongwu's hands at all. He was taken aback by the scene before him, but he continued to exert his strength. The 100 inscriptions saint sword in his hand whistled in the air as it slashed toward Duan Lingtian's neck. It was apparent that he wanted to decapitate Duan Lingtian. Swish! Like a bolt of lightning, Yongwu saw something flashed across his eyes. It was accompanied by a deafening sound of wind whistling in the air that made his eardrums tremble. Clang! In the next instant, a loud metal clashing sound reverberated in the air and shattered Yongwu's eardrums, causing blood to stream out of his ears. Yongwu did not even have time to tend to his bleeding ears when he sensed a resistance force against his sword that made it tremble. It was as though it had clashed with something indestructible. This force did not only tear the skin between his thumb and his index finger, but the vibration it sent down the 100 inscriptions sword even entered his body, causing his internal organs to be severely injured. Barf! Yongwu's body trembled before he threw up blood. He felt dizzy, and his vision was blurry as he looked at his 100 inscriptions sword. A fierce-looking hand with sharp claws was blocking the 100 inscriptions saint sword of his hand. Initially, he had thought some saint beast or wild beast had made its move to help Duan Lingtian, but when he shifted his gaze upward, he realized this hand with sharp claws were not different from a dragon's hand. Not only that, but it was Duan Lingtian's hand. Whoosh! Before Yongwu could see the dragon claws on Duan Lingtian's hand clearly, it had already disappeared and was replaced with a human hand. At the same time, this hand stretched out at lightning speed and clasped Yongwu's neck. A vast energy suppressed his energy and hoisted him up forcefully by his neck. See cough, see cough. Now that Yongwu's energy was suppressed, he could no longer hover in the air. His face turned red instantly since he was held up in the air by his neck. He could not breathe and was suffocating. It seems like the person who's going to die isn't me. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. It was Duan Lingtian who was holding Yongwu up by his neck. He stared at Yongwu's flushed face emotionlessly. Earlier, when the 100 inscriptions saint sword in Yongwu's hand almost landed on Duan Lingtian, he he quickly made his move in a timely manner. He had immediately used the high-grade divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. With the help of the elementary devouring tactic, he was still able to raise the force of his Sun True Origin even though he was heavily injured, and it was difficult for him to raise the force of his Sun True Origin to his heart's content. Despite the fact that he could not raise it to its peak, it was not difficult for him to raise it to a level where he could fight against Yongwu. At the same time, he had dragonized his right hand as well. Currently, he could easily transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, so it was even easier for him to dragonize his right hand. With the help of his dragonized right hand and the Sun True Origin whose force had been raised by the devouring tactic, Duan Lingtian easily blocked the 100 Inscriptions Saint weapon in Yongwu's hand. From the beginning until the end, he did not feel any pressure at all. Although the 100 Inscriptions Saint sword was powerful, Yongwu's strength was not that strong. A mere Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator who wielded the 100 Inscriptions Saint sword was not much of a threat to Duan Lingtian. The moment Duan Lingtian extended his dragon's claws out, not only did it block Yongwu's 100 Inscriptions Saint sword, but it had even severely injured Yongwu as well. This, inconceivable, inconceivable, how's this possible? Wasn't he injured by Elder Lian? How is he still so strong? Isn't he a martial cultivator at the peak of the Eminent Saint stage? Let alone a martial cultivator at the peak of the Eminent Saint stage who's injured, even a martial cultivator at the peak of the Eminent Saint stage at his peak doesn't possess his strength. The spectators were momentarily stunned. When they regained their senses, they had an expression of shock and disbelief on their faces. Many people felt that their brains had gone haywire. Who could tell them what was going on? Why was a martial cultivator at the peak of the Eminent Saint stage who was severely injured so strong and even managed to counterattack a Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator and successfully grasped his opponent's life in his hand? They could tell that Duan Lingtian could kill Yongwu anytime as long as he wanted to. Junior brother Lingtian, Ji Yuli's eyes lit up, and he sighed in relief when he saw the scene before him, unlike other people who were filled with shock and disbelief. Freak. Zhu Luqi was dumbfounded for a long time before spitting out one word. Duan Lingtian's strength had also shocked and baffled him. It did not cross his mind that although Duan Lingtian was severely injured, he was still so strong. In just 2 to 3 moves, he had already turned the situation around and put Yongwu, a Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator, in a disadvantageous position. Not only that, but he held Yongwu's life in his hands as well. Let second young master go. At the same time, the old man who always followed behind Yongwu could no longer hold back when he saw the pained expression on Yongwu's face from having his neck gripped by Duan Lingtian. After he shouted, he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind as he charged toward Duan Lingtian to try and rescue his second young master. Humph. However, the instant the old man made his move, a thunderous snort resonated. Bang! A terrifying energy sent the old man flying. Tang Shan looked at the old man whom he had sent flying and said coldly, "If you dare to act recklessly again, you'll definitely die." The old man instantly trembled as colors drained from his face. The old man took a deep breath and immediately shifted his gaze to Lian who was standing by Tang Shan's side. "Elder Lian, you're our 5th elder's best friend. You must save second young master. The 5th elder only has 2 sons, and he adores the second young master the most. If something happens to the second young master, he wouldn't be able to handle it." The moment he realized it was impossible for him to save his second young master, he immediately tried to pull Lian into it. Upon hearing his voice transmission, Lian's originally grim expression turned even grimmer. Asking him to save Yongwu? How should he save Yongwu? Everyone present on the scene personally witnessed Duan Lingtian and Yongwu engaging in a death duel. If he shamelessly made his move, he could indeed save Yongwu. However, he could dismiss the idea of staying in the fire worship sect in the future since the sect would not tolerate such disgrace. Chapter 1896. Lian knew very well if he intervened in the death duel between Duan Lingtian and Yongwu, he would definitely be expelled by the fire worship sect. Would he risk getting expelled from the fire worship sect for Yongwu? Of course not. Even if it was his biological son, he would not do anything to break the fire worship sect's rules, let alone for his friend's son. Publicly intervening in a death duel and bringing shame to the fire worship sect was one of fire worship sect's taboos. Duan Lingtian, although he did not dare to outwardly intervene, he still secretly transmitted his voice to Duan Lingtian, "Let him go. Otherwise, you'll definitely regret it." The moment he opened his mouth, he threatened Duan Lingtian in a near-commanding tone as he told him to let go of Yang Wu. Regret it. Upon hearing Li An's voice transmission, Duan Lingtian turned his head and shifted his gaze in a neither hurried nor slow manner to Lian. Duan Lingtian sneered as he said loudly, "Elder Lian, if I'm not mistaken, the death duel is between me and Yang Wu. I wonder what you're trying to do by transmitting your voice to me and asking me to let Yang Wu go. You said I'll regret it if I don't let go. I wonder, Elder Lian, how am I going to regret it?" When Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he stared at Lian. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, a commotion instantly broke out. Many people turned to look at Lian. Their eyes were filled with contempt, hatred, and rage. At this instant, Lian was the target of everyone's hate. This was because he had threatened Duan Lingtian. Is he really the strongest Silver Flame Elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum of the Fire Worship Sect? To think that he actually dares to intervene in this matter in the Fire Worship Sect. He's really a disgrace to the Black Turtle Sanctum and the Fire Worship Sect. If Duan Lingtian did not reveal this, I would be unaware that a supposedly awe-inspiring Silver Flame Elder of the Fire Worship Sect would have such a character. How revolting. After a while, many of those who were brave began to rebuke Lian loudly and expressed their dissatisfaction with him. Lian had enraged the crowd. "Elder Lian, it's a little inappropriate for you to do this, right?" Tang Shan asked in his deep voice as he looked at Lian with a frown on his face. "Elder Tang Shan, he's merely slandering me. You actually fell for it?" Lian asked in return, unwilling to admit he had been outdone by Duan Lingtian. At the same time, Lian looked at Duan Lingtian and snorted coldly. "Duan Lingtian, do you know what punishment comes with the crime of slandering a Fire Worship Sect's elder? If you don't want to die, you better obediently shut your mouth," Lian said as he looked at Duan Lingtian with killing intent in his eyes. He wanted to scare Duan Lingtian because it did not cross his mind that Duan Lingtian would reveal his words through voice transmission. It felt as though Duan Lingtian had torn down the mask he had put on. "Duan Lingtian, if you don't want to die, you better obediently shut your mouth." At the same time, Lian did not forget to threaten Duan Lingtian through voice transmission again. "Don't think I'm joking. If you don't keep quiet, you'll definitely die even if you enter the Fire Worship Sect. I, Lian, am the first Silver Flame Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum of the Fire Worship Sect. It would be easy for me to kill you." Lian's voice turned colder and colder as he spoke. When Lian thought Duan Lingtian would be cowed by his threats, Duan Lingtian laughed out loud. Then, Duan Lingtian looked at Lian, whose expression was grave, and said, "Elder Lian, you keep saying that I'm slandering you. Why don't we swear on the lightning penalty oath so everyone can see who's telling the truth and who's lying?" Lightning penalty oath. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Lian's expression turned even graver. Everyone turned to look at Lian to see if he dared to swear on the lightning penalty oath to prove his innocence. If he did not dare to do it, it would mean he was guilty. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Lian looked at Duan Lingtian in disdain and said scornfully, "Who are you to think that you're worthy for me to swear on the lightning penalty oath for?" The moment his words left his mouth, the people began to boo Lian. Although Lian put on a dignified air when he spoke, most people knew Lian must be afraid to swear on the lightning penalty oath because he was guilty. He only said such words as an excuse. The instant Lian heard the commotion, he no longer dared to threaten Duan Lingtian through voice transmission. However, he was standing from afar and was staring at Duan Lingtian with a cold gaze that was filled with hatred that seemed like it would never go away until the day he died. Naturally, Duan Lingtian noticed Lian's gaze, but he was not bothered by it. This was because he already knew very well when he called Lian an old dog, he had already offended Lian to the point of no return. He did not regret this. If Tang Shan did not make a move to block Lian's attack, he would have been killed by Lian. At that time, Lian did not show any mercy at all. It was obvious he intended to kill him. He had never met Lian before this, and yet, Lian still wanted to kill him. How could he not be furious? For this reason, from that moment onward, he had regarded Lian as his enemy. Why would he care about Lian's threats? Duan Lingtian, please, let me go. I beg you." At the same time, Yang Wu, whose neck was gripped by Duan Lingtian, coughed and spluttered as he begged Duan Lingtian to spare his life when he realized it was impossible for Lian to save him. Where did his arrogance go at this moment? I can't believe it would end this way. If you didn't witness it personally, you wouldn't have believed it. That's right. At the start of the death duel, almost everybody felt that Duan Lingtian would definitely die. Who would expect that he managed to turn the situation around? Not only did he easily defeat Yongwu and overpower him, but he even holds Yongwu's life in his hands. It's completely unbelievable that Duan Lingtian is only a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage. Nonsense. From the current strength he demonstrates, how can he possibly be a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage? He's more like a martial cultivator at the peak of the divine saint stage. Everyone gasped when they heard Yongwu begging forgiveness from Duan Lingtian when they recalled how arrogantly he had acted earlier. Second young master. The old man who was severely injured by Teng Shan was standing in the distance with a pale face. A hint of helplessness could be seen in his eyes. He was heavily injured, and it was impossible for him to save another person. Moreover, even if he was not injured, he would not be able to rescue Yongwu. This was because Teng Shan, the witness whom Duan Lingtian had invited to oversee the death duel, was present on the scene. It was impossible that Teng Shan would let him save Yongwu. Forgive you. Duan Lingtian was indifferent faced with Yongwu who was begging for forgiveness. I'm very curious though, if my life is in your hands, would you have let me go? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Yongwu's eyes widened. Then, his body tensed as though he was afraid Duan Lingtian would see through him. I know the answer even if you don't tell me. Duan Lingtian's gaze turned colder and colder as it gleamed with killing intent. Then, my answer is the same as yours. And no, no, and no. And no, no. Sensing Duan Lingtian's murderous intent, Yongwu struggled violently as he shouted and coughed. Horror and despair had completely filled his eyes. Before killing Yongwu, Duan Lingtian looked at Lian and asked indifferently, Elder Lian, do you still have anything to say to him? You won't have any chance again after this. Provocation. That was a blatant provocation. At this moment, everyone could sense the tension between both of them. When Lian heard Duan Lingtian's provocative words, he felt his lungs were going to burst out of anger. However, it was inappropriate for him to show his emotions in front of so many people. After all, every single one of his actions represented the Black Turtle Sanctum and the Fire Worship sect. Little Wu, die in peace. Uncle Li will send him to meet you soon. In the end, Lian glanced at Yongwu before he transmitted his voice transmission. His voice sounded grim as well when he spoke. No matter what, Yongwu was his best friend's son. Now that he was going to die here, he did not know how to face his best friend in the future. However, there was nothing he could do now. He could only watch as Yongwu dies. Duan Lingtian, if you kill him, not only will you have to face my wrath, but you'll have to face 5th Elder Yangchang's wrath from the Northern Plethora sect as well. You're going to die. Lian stared at Duan Lingtian coldly and sentenced Duan Lingtian to death in his heart. Snap. A crisp sound could be heard as Duan Lingtian tightened his grip and killed Yongwu. Until the moment Yongwu died, his eyes were still wide open. He died with a belly full of regrets. After killing Yongwu and keeping the 100 inscriptions Saint Sword in his spatial ring, Duan Lingtian released his grip on Yongwu's neck, causing Yongwu to drop from the sky. At the same time, his expression changed as colors drained from his face. At this moment, the energy absorbed by the high-grade divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, was completely depleted. His spiritual energy was depleted as well. He decided to kill Yongwu instantly due to this reason. He was afraid the situation would change again. He's dead. The awe-inspiring son of the Northern Plethora sect's 5th Elder is dead. I wonder how angry the 5th Elder will be when finds out about this. Humph. Yongwu deserves to die. If he didn't provoke other people, he wouldn't have been killed. Humph. After Yongwu was killed, the scene that was silent broke out in an uproar again. Chapter 1897. Soon after, everyone shifted their attention to Duan Lingtian. The purple-clad young man whom they did not regard highly in the beginning managed to turn the situation around at the most critical moment when he fought against Yongwu, who was at the Mastery Divine Saint stage, and killed him. Such an unexpected outcome had also given them a fright that they only regained their senses after a long time. After all of them were certain the purple-clad young man would be killed by Yongwu. Duan Lingtian must know some secret tactic that can conceal his cultivation base. Somebody said loudly. This must be the case. Many people agreed with him. Although they had never heard of any secret tactic that could conceal one's cultivation base in the Dao Martial Saint land, they were even more convinced that such a tactic existed after they witnessed Duan Lingtian's strength. What a joke! Based on their probing using their divine consciousness, Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was only at the peak of the eminent saint stage. However, the person whom they discovered to only have a cultivation base at the peak of the eminent saint stage could actually destroy the territory of a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator in just one blow while he was heavily injured. Not only that, but he had even forcefully endured the 100 inscriptions saint sword that was wielded unreservedly by a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator. He even overpowered the other party in just a blink of an eye and grasped the other party's life in his hands. Was this something a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage could do? Just now when Yongwu made his move, he looked half dead. As soon as Yongwu approached him, he cast a terrifying technique that seemed to absorb the heaven and earth spirit energy in his surroundings. I saw that as well. At that time, a whirlpool appeared, and the energy in the surrounding was absorbed by the whirlpool at an extremely fast speed. Standing in the center of the whirlpool was none other than Duan Lingtian. It's obvious the energy that absorbed into the whirlpool was controlled by Duan Lingtian. That's the reason why he's still so strong despite being heavily injured. Not only that, but the whirlpool even destroyed Yongwu's territory. Such a horrifying technique must be a divine ability. Moreover, it must not be a simple divine ability. It's most likely a high-grade divine ability. The crowd discussed among themselves. Their eyes were filled with confusion and shock when they looked at Duan Lingtian. Moreover, the thing he used to block Yongwu's 100 inscriptions saint sword seemed to be a claw-shaped saint weapon. I'm sure that saint weapon must be a 100 inscriptions saint weapon as well since it was able to withstand the 100 inscriptions saint sword. Many people began discussing Duan Lingtian's dragonized right hand. Naturally, they did not know Duan Lingtian had dragonized his right hand. They thought he had reacted quickly and took out a saint weapon and quickly put it away after he was done with it. Dragon Warrior. If there were people who knew the technique Duan Lingtian had used was dragonization that allowed him to transform into a dragon warrior, it was Tengshan and Lian. As the fire worship sect's silver flame elders and the powerhouses who were ranked at the top 200 on the supreme saint ranking, they were strong and possessed eyesight that others could not compare to. Although it only took Duan Lingtian a second to dragonize his right hand before reverting it back to normal, they could tell it was a dragon's hand. As for how many claws his hand had, they did not see it clearly. This was because Duan Lingtian had quickly reverted his hands back to normal. However, they were certain Duan Lingtian was a dragon warrior. I can't believe this little fellow is actually a dragon warrior. Tang Shan was happy for Duan Lingtian when he saw him killing Yongwu and winning the death duel. However, he was still shocked by the fact that Duan Lingtian's a dragon warrior. It seems like he has some connections with the 7-clawed divine dragons in the dragon clan. Naturally, he thought Duan Lingtian was a 7-clawed dragon warrior because he did not see the 9 claws on Duan Lingtian's dragonized hand. If he found out Duan Lingtian was a 9-clawed dragon warrior, he would be even more shocked. So what if he's a dragon warrior? It just so happens that I haven't killed a dragon warrior before. It's just the right time for me to try now. Li An's gaze was cold and filled with killing intent as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Thank you, Elder Teng Shan, for maintaining the fairness of the death duel. After killing Yongwu, Duan Lingtian ignored the gazes in the surrounding. The first thing he did was to cup both his hands together and expressed his gratitude to Teng Shan. You don't have to thank me. As an elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum in the Fire Worship Sect, this is part of my responsibility. Teng Shan said as he shook his head. Just like that, it seemed like the incident had finally ended. Naturally, it only seemed as though it had ended. In truth, everything would begin with Yongwu's death. By killing Yongwu, Duan Lingtian had offended many people. First, he had offended the first Silver Flame Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum in the Fire Worship Sect. Second, he had offended Yang Chong, the 5th Elder of Northern Plethora Sect. Although the Northern Plethora Sect's elder seemed like he was in a lower position compared to an elder from the Fire Worship Sect, as the 5th Elder of the Northern Plethora Sect, Yang Chong's influence was in no way inferior to the Silver Flame Elder, Lian, from the Fire Worship Sect. Otherwise, they would not have become good friends. Due to their status and strength being on par and sharing the same interests, they became good friends. In addition, as the Northern Plethora Sect's 5th Elder, Yang Chong's influence in the Northern Plethora Sect was far superior to Lian's influence in the Fire Worship Sect. In the Fire Worship Sect, Lian was merely one of the many Silver Flames Elders. He only had some influence in the Black Turtle Sanctum, one of the 4 symbols sanctums, that was in charge of the affairs in the outer ring of the fire worship sect. There was a total of 5 silver flame elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum, and he was the strongest among them. I can't believe I've already offended 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses so soon after I arrived in the upper province. Duan Lingtian knew what the consequences were for killing Yongwu, but he still killed him anyway. Being overly cautious was not Duan Lingtian's style. Not only that, but he also knew very well that even if he did not kill Yongwu, Lian would not let him go. By killing Yongwu, he merely offended another Saint Celestial stage powerhouse who was more or less the same as Lian. To him, there was not much difference in offending 1 or 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses. Tisk tisk, 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses. What a huge pressure. It's been a while since I last felt such an enormous pressure. Looks like after I've wormed my way into the fire worship sect and become one of their members, I'll have to make use of my time to raise my strength. Although Duan Lingtian was not afraid, he had offended 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses, so he still felt pressured by it. Currently, Elder Huo must be almost done with repairing the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. As long as the 4th level is repaired, not only will I have a better cultivation environment, but I'll have a place to hide as well. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he became slightly excited. At this moment, the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda had only been repaired up to the 3rd level. Although the cultivation environment on the 3rd level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite was quite good, it was more or less similar to the cultivation environment in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. The only advantage he had was the time flow inside was 5 times slower than it was outside. 5 days inside was equivalent to only 1 day outside. However, once the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was repaired, in addition to having a better cultivation environment, the time flow would be even slower inside. According to Elder Huo, the time flow inside the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite was 8 times slower than it was outside. 8 days inside was equivalent to only 1 day outside. Just this alone was enough to fill Duan Lingtian with determination to repair it no matter what it took. Apart from that, there was another thing that Duan Lingtian was looking forward to as well. According to Elder Huo, once the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was repaired, the space inside would stabilize. No matter how huge the commotion outside was, he would not be impacted by it if he hid inside. It was different from how it was now, where he would be sent out immediately if there was even the slightest movement outside. If the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda has been repaired, if I encounter a situation where I'm unable to fight, I can at least hide myself. As long as I hide in the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and transform the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda into a speck of dust, the other party won't be able to find me. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he felt another rush of excitement. If he encountered a difficult situation, this could be considered as having a protective talisman that could be used over and over again. More and more people gathered in the Black Turtle Sanctum. After Duan Lingtian returned to Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi's side, other people also began to disperse. They did not forget the purpose they had come here today. It was to participate in the selection of elite disciples by the 4 Symbols Sanctum, including the Black Turtle Sanctum. Those who came today were mostly natives of the western region who regarded the fire worship sect as their religion. They wanted to become a member of the fire worship sect. To them, it was the highest honor. Ji Yuli looked at the ancient figure that was getting smaller and smaller in the distance. He said to Duan Lingtian, "Junior brother Lingtian, the old man who followed behind Yongwu has left with Yongwu's body. He must be returning to the northern plethora sect to report this incident." "Let him be," Duan Lingtian replied nonchalantly. That old man was a quintessential saint stage powerhouse. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to stop the old man. Even if he could stop him, news of him killing Yongwu would eventually reach the northern plethora sect. As the number of people increased, noon had finally arrived. Behind the range of mountains where the Black Turtle Sanctum's estate was situated, a group of people had gathered in the sky in a formidable formation. From afar, they looked like black clouds that hung above a city. Currently, everyone's attention was directed at the people standing high up in the sky. There were 8 people. Among the 8 people, there were old men, old women, middle-aged men, and young women. Tang Shan and Lian were among these people. Chapter 1898. The other 6 people were also wearing the same white robes embroidered with silver flames like Tang Shan and Lian. The only difference they had from Tang Shan and Li An's white robes was the pattern that was embroidered on it. A black turtle was embroidered on Tang Shan and Li An's white robes. On the other hand, among the 6 people, 2 of them had a divine dragon on their white robes, another 2 had an enormous tiger, and the remaining 2 had a humongous firebird. It's the elders from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. Someone exclaimed when Duan Lingtian noticed the differences of the pattern on the white robes that the 6 people wore. He had also guessed they were the elders from the other 3 sanctums of the 4 symbols sanctums. I've heard that among the fire worship sect's 4 symbols sanctums, only the divine ability from the White Tiger Sanctum is an offensive divine ability. I hope I'll be selected by the 2 elders from the White Tiger Sanctum. A young man standing nearby said hopefully as he looked at the 2 elders from the White Tiger Sanctum. On the other hand, I hope the 2 elders from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum will pick me. The divine ability that the Vermilion Bird Sanctum let its disciples comprehend is a movement divine ability. As the saying goes, speed is the only impenetrable martial technique in the world. The same applies to divine abilities. Only speed is invincible, somebody said with a hopeful expression on his face. Unlike the young man who wanted to go to the White Tiger Sanctum, he wanted to go to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum instead. Actually, it's not that bad to go to the Azure Dragon Sanctum. The divine ability that the Azure Dragon Sanctum let its disciples comprehend is an assist-type divine ability. It's said that it's created based on the Dragon Clan's inherited divine ability, the true form Berserkification. As the saying goes, indigo came from the color blue, but it's bluer than the latter. Somebody chimed in. Tisk tisk, compared to the divine abilities from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, I still prefer the defensive divine ability in the Black Turtle Sanctum. It's said that although all the divine abilities from the 4 symbols sanctums are high-grade divine abilities, the Black Turtle's barrier from the Black Turtle Sanctum is of a slightly higher grade compared to the others. A middle-aged man said with a chuckle. Black Turtle's barrier, high-grade defensive divine ability. The moment these words left the middle-aged man's mouth, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed immediately. He had also heard about how every sanctum would let their disciples comprehend a divine ability, but he was not particularly interested in it. This was because he had thought the divine abilities from the 4 sanctums were merely medium-grade divine abilities. He had only realized he had guessed wrongly when he heard the middle-aged man's words. More importantly, the high-grade divine ability from the Black Turtle Sanctum was actually the defensive divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier. It seems like I have fate with the Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly as he shifted his gaze to Tang Shan and Lian. Currently, he had mastered the offensive divine ability, the otherworldly celestial, the assist-type divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, and the movement divine ability, the golden crow's wings. He had not mastered any high-grade defensive divine ability. However, he did comprehend a medium-grade defensive divine ability. It was none other than the 6 Harmonies golden body that he had obtained from the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial secret zone. However, for the reason that all the divine abilities he had comprehended were high-grade divine abilities, Duan Lingtian instinctively looked down on the 6 Harmonies golden body and did not bother to cultivate it. It was also because he did not want to waste his time and spiritual energy on a medium-grade divine ability. He was desperate to get stronger so he could save Ka and their daughter. He had no time to waste at all. If the disciples from the mystical Sky Mansion who had entered the St. Martial secret zone with Duan Lingtian previously heard his thoughts, they would be angered to the point of throwing up blood. He did not want to waste his time and spiritual energy on a medium-grade divine ability. This statement alone made it sound like he was blatantly showing off. I've finally encountered a high-grade defensive divine ability. For the sake of the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, I must stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as his eyes were filled with determination. Prior to learning the divine abilities from the 4 symbols sanctum were high-grade divine abilities, Duan Lingtian was not bothered with which sanctum he would be sent to. He felt they were all the same. However, now that he learned that the 4 symbols sanctums would provide a high-grade divine ability for their disciples to cultivate, he was intent on remaining in the Black Turtle Sanctum since the high-grade defensive divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, that he desperately wanted was in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Naturally, now that he had encountered a high-grade defensive divine ability, he would not let the opportunity slip through his hands. Duan Lingtian had asked Elder Huo for a defensive divine ability before. However, Elder Huo had told him that apart from the golden crow's wings that he had passed to him, The other divine abilities he was familiar with could only be used when one had the strength of a celestial being. For this reason, Duan Lingtian knew he had to rely on himself if he wanted to cultivate a high-grade defensive divine ability. At the same time, Silver Flame Elder Tang Shan from the Black Turtle Sanctum finally opened his mouth. Everyone. Tang Shan's voice sounded coarse. Along with the vast energy in his voice, it resonated in the ears of everyone present on the scene. Your presence here is enough to show your intention. All of you must want to become a disciple of our fire worship sect. Tang Shan's voice had a hint of exaltation as he spoke. Now, tell me, am I right? Tang Shan's voice suddenly turned as loud as a clap of thunder. Yes, yes. As soon as Tang Shan finished speaking, almost everyone around Duan Lingtian answered in excitement. All of them wanted to become a disciple of the fire worship sect. At this moment, the atmosphere was charged. I find it hard to believe that someone like Elder Tang Shan who appears crude is actually so eloquent with his words. With just a few sentences, he managed to bring up the atmosphere. Duan Lingtian was shocked when he saw how excited everyone had become. I'm sure all of you have noticed the other people with me. Apart from Elder Lian, who's also a Black Turtle Sanctum's elder like me, these 6 people standing with me are from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, the White Tiger Sanctum, and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. Tang Shan continued to speak. They had come here today to select some of you to enter their sanctums. No matter which sanctum you end up in, you'll successfully become the disciple of that sanctum if you manage to pass the assessment of that sanctum. Once you've become a disciple of the 4 Symbols Sanctum, it would also mean that you've officially joined the Fire Worship Sect and become a Fire Worship Sect's disciple. Most people's eyes lit up immediately when Tang Shan reached this part of his speech. What you need to do next is to stay still. Whoever is selected, please stand behind the elder who has selected you. You'll then follow the elder back to the sanctum, Tang Shan said. Elder Tang Shan. At this moment, Duan Lingtian transmitted his voice to Tang Shan. I wish to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Please help me fulfill my wish, Elder Tang Shan. Tang Shan was momentarily stunned when he heard Duan Lingtian's voice transmission. If Lian was not in the Black Turtle Sanctum, he would definitely do everything within his power to make Duan Lingtian stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. He was impressed by the strength and innate talent Duan Lingtian had demonstrated earlier. However, he had dismissed that idea since Lian was also in the Black Turtle Sanctum. If Duan Lingtian remained in the Black Turtle Sanctum, he would not be able to live in peace since Lian would make sure he would not be able to live well. It did not cross Tang Shan's mind that not only did Duan Lingtian wish to remain in the Black Turtle Sanctum that Lian was from, but he would take the initiative to transmit his voice to him and ask for his help to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian, the Black Turtle Sanctum may not be the best place for you. With Elder Lian here, there's no benefit for you in staying in the Black Turtle Sanctum. He's a vengeful person, and he won't let this matter go, Tang Shan warned him through voice transmission. Duan Lingtian felt a sense of warmth in his heart when he heard Tang Shan's words. He did not know Tang Shan, there was no need for him to say these words to him. Elder Tang Shan, I want to remain in the Black Turtle Sanctum because I want to comprehend the high-grade divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. As for Lian, I'm not afraid of him. Moreover, as long as I stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum and in the Fire Worship Sect, he shouldn't be so brave as to make a move against me. Duan Lingtian stated his purpose bluntly. Not only that, but he also said he was not afraid of Lian. If you stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, even if he doesn't personally make a move against you, he still has other ways to make things difficult for you. Moreover, although our Black Turtle Sanctum's high-grade divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier, is impressive, it's not something everyone would be able to comprehend. Tang Shan continued saying, it's unwise to risk your life for a divine ability you're not certain you'll be able to successfully comprehend. It was apparent Tang Shan had said this to dissuade Duan Lingtian. Elder Tang Shan, you don't have to dissuade me. I've already made up my mind. Besides, I really wish you'll do me this favor. If I can stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, I'll owe you a favor. Duan Lingtian said determinedly. He was a little anxious when he finished speaking. Since you're already made up your mind, I won't dissuade you anymore. Don't worry, I'll do everything I can to help you stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Tang Shan instantly agreed to Duan Lingtian's request. Thank you, Elder Tang Shan. Duan Lingtian was delighted when he heard Tang Shan had agreed to his request. He quickly expressed his gratitude. Everyone, the rules are the same as before. Starting from now, we'll pick our candidates after the span of 10 breaths, Tang Shan said to the other 4 symbols sanctums, elders. They nodded. There are 8 more breaths left. Many people around Duan Lingtian held their breaths immediately. The span of 10 breaths passed in just a blink of an eye. Swish, 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 comma. Under the crowd's anticipatory gazes, 8 streaks of light that did not contain offensive force shot out one after another, locking on their targets. 6 streaks of light landed on different people, but 2 streaks of light landed on the same person. Among these 2 streaks of light, one of them was from Tang Shan, whom Duan Lingtian had requested a favor from. The other light came from none other than Lian. Chapter 1899. The streaks of light that did not contain any offensive force came from the 8 elders of the 4 symbols sanctums and landed on a group of people who came to participate in the assessment of the fire worship sect's 4 symbols sanctums. For example, the person selected by the Azure Dragon Sanctum's elder would have to follow the Azure Dragon Sanctum's elder to the Azure Dragon Sanctum to participate in the Azure Dragon Sanctum's assessment. Only after passing the assessment he would become the disciple of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Although he would only be an outer disciple of the fire worship sect, he was still a disciple of the fire worship sect nonetheless. After becoming a disciple of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, he would be eligible to comprehend the high-grade assist-type divine ability in the Azure Dragon Sanctum that had existed since ancient times. It was the same with the other 3 sanctums. In the history of the fire worship sect's 4 symbols sanctums, it was not that there were no occasions when 2 4 symbols sanctums elders had selected the same participant. However, it was rare for 2 elders from the same sanctum to select the same person. Generally, before the elders from the same sanctum selected participants, they would discuss with one another first. For this reason, when the 6 elders from the other 3 sanctums saw Tang Shan and Lian, the 2 Black Turtle Sanctum's elders, had selected the same young man, they were slightly taken aback. Elder Lian, Elder Tang Shan, didn't both of you discuss who you're going to select prior to this? If Sanctum Leader Chu finds out both of you made such a mistake, I'm sure he would reproach both of you for not being united. Elder Lian, Elder Tang Shan, is there any misunderstandings between both of you? The 6 elders from the other 3 sanctums commented one after another. They had just arrived, so they were unaware of what had happened. Although that was the case, they could still sense the tension between Tang Shan and Lian. Upon hearing that, Tang Shan and Lian looked at one another before snorting coldly. Tang Shan was not surprised that Lian had selected Duan Lingtian to remain in the Black Turtle Sanctum since he knew Lian was a vengeful person. He would use all sorts of tricks to make Duan Lingtian stay. To Lian, as long as Duan Lingtian stayed in the Black Turtle Sanctum, he would not be able to escape from Lian. Unlike Tang Shan, who maintained his composure, Lian was greatly taken aback when he saw Tang Shan had chosen Duan Lingtian as well. Based on his understanding of Tang Shan, if Tang Shan had taken a liking to Duan Lingtian, he would be eager to get Duan Lingtian to leave the Black Turtle Sanctum. After all, Tang Shan knew he would not Duan Lingtian go. Could it that Tang Shan is impressed by Duan Lingtian's innate talent and wants to take him in as a disciple? Lian thought to himself, coming up with a conclusion that made the most sense to him. However, he felt that Tang Shan was too naive. If he, Lian, wanted to kill someone, that someone would not be able to live. Even if Duan Lingtian had Tang Shan's support, the outcome would still be the same. If they fought, he would be able to defeat Tang Shan as well. After all, he was ranked at the 139th place on the Supreme Saint ranking while Tang Shan was only ranked at the 173rd place. The smaller the gap on the Supreme Saint ranking meant that the disparity between each participant's strength was even bigger. Although Tang Shan was only ranked 30 places behind Lian, if they fought, he was confident he could kill Tang Shan in within 10 moves. When the elders from the 3 sanctums looked at Lian and Tang Shan, the people standing nearby broke into a commotion as they expressed their bewilderment. Both of the Black Turtle Sanctum's elders, Elder Lian and Elder Tang Shan, selected Duan Lingtian. What's going on? I'm not surprised that Elder Lian selected Duan Lingtian to remain in the Black Turtle Sanctum because it would be much easier for him to seek revenge from Duan Lingtian if he's in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian has killed Yang Wu, the second son of the Northern Plethora sect's 5th elder, Yang Chong, in front of Elder Lian. He's Elder Yang Chong's best friend, I'm sure he won't let the matter go. Elder Tang Shan seems to have taken a liking to Duan Lingtian. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped Duan Lingtian earlier. In that case, shouldn't he advise Duan Lingtian to go to one of the other 3 sanctums? I really don't know why Elder Tang Shan wants Duan Lingtian to remain in the Black Turtle Sanctum. If Duan Lingtian stays here, it's no different from throwing a goat to the wolves. The people present on the scene discussed among themselves as their eyes shifted between Lian and Duan Lingtian. At the same time, the elders from the other three sanctums finally understood what was going on. As it turned out, Lian and Tang Shan seemed to be in discord because of the purple-clad young man named Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian had killed Yang Wu, the son of the fifth elder from the Northern Plethora sect, before they arrived. His action was akin to slapping Lian. After all, the fifth elder from the Northern Plethora sect was Lian's best friend. Since Lian was unable to protect Yang Wu, everyone would think he was useless. It was only natural for Lian to hate Duan Lingtian to the core and wanted to kill him. I can understand why Lian selected Duan Lingtian to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. However, if Tang Shan has truly taken a liking to Duan Lingtian, why would he want Duan Lingtian to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum? The 6 elders of the 3 sanctums were puzzled over this. 2 elders who were close to Tang Shan even questioned his action through voice transmission, and they soon obtained the answer. I intended to send him to one of the other 3 sanctums, but he seems determined to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. He told me that he wanted to comprehend the high-grade defensive divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier in the Black Turtle Sanctum, Tang Shan replied through voice transmission as he smiled wryly. I see. However, this little fellow is being too reckless. Doesn't he know that the defensive divine ability from the Black Turtle Sanctum is the hardest to comprehend among all 4 high-grade divine abilities in the 4 symbols sanctums? To think he would risk his own life for a divine ability when nobody can be certain if he would be able to successfully comprehend it. Even if this little fellow has a high innate talent, he would eventually die on the vine. The 2 elders shook their heads. They were not impressed by Duan Lingtian due to how impulsive he was acting. Although Duan Lingtian was strong and had a high innate talent, it was not to the point where the 6 elders from the other 3 sanctums would compete with the Black Turtle Sanctum for him. Moreover, they did not want to offend Lian. For this reason, Duan Lingtian's future whereabouts had been determined. He was to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. When Ji Yuli saw how Duan Lingtian had gone to stand behind Tang Shan, his expression turned solemn as he said to Duan Lingtian through voice transmission, "Junior brother Lingtian, if you have to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, why don't you leave the fire worship sect instead?" Leave the fire worship sect? Duan Lingtian shook his head. Even if I don't stay here, do you think I'll be able to leave the Black Turtle Sanctum alive, senior brother Ji Yuli? Lian doesn't dare to violate the fire worship sect's rules in the Black Turtle Sanctum, so he wouldn't touch me. However, once I leave the Black Turtle Sanctum, he's no longer restrained by the fire worship sect's rules. At that time, do you think I'll be able to stay alive? Duan Lingtian did not tell him that he also wanted to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum for the time being. Instead, he analyzed the situation that he was in to Ji Yuli. Since he had thoroughly offended to Lian, he no longer had the option of leaving the fire worship sect. Duan Lingtian also said the same thing to Zhu Luqi through voice transmission. He replied with a glum expression, "Duan Lingtian is right. He might survive if he stays in the fire worship sect, he'll definitely die if he leaves." At the same time, a hint of concern could be seen in his eyes. However, if you remain in the Black Turtle Sanctum, even if Lian can't openly make a move, he would still use all sorts of methods to deal with you. Naturally, he won't be able to kill you due to the rules in the fire worship sect. However, the people he sends out to deal with you will definitely be stronger than you. You'll have to learn to be patient when you face them. You must not impulsively accept death duel invitations that they issue you. Zhu Luqi's expression turned even glummer when he reached the end of his sentence. Don't worry, I won't go so far as to endanger my own life. There are still many things I must do, so I have to live on. Duan Lingtian nodded. He had reincarnated twice. Coupled with the hardships he had been through, he had long suppressed the urge to act impulsively. If he encountered someone he could not defeat, he would endure it silently for the time being even if he was humiliated. He would wait until he had grown strong in the future before he sought revenge in a domineering manner. Seeking death recklessly was not his style. I really didn't expect Elder Tang Shan would help you stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. I thought he has a good impression of you. Shouldn't he advise you to leave the Black Turtle Sanctum for your own safety? Ji Yuli looked at Duan Lingtian. Similar to most people present on the scene, he was confused by Tang Shan's action. Zhu Luqi also looked at Duan Lingtian. He found it strange as well. Naturally, Elder Tang Shan doesn't want me to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. I was the one who asked him to let me stay here, Duan Lingtian replied. Why? Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi frowned. They had no idea why Duan Lingtian would do such a thing since it was no different from risking his own life. It's because I want to comprehend the high-grade defensive divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian replied with a gleam in his eyes. Upon hearing his reply, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi were speechless. Perhaps, only Duan Lingtian would risk his own life for a divine ability that nobody knew for certain if he could successfully comprehend. They knew if they were in his shoes, they would not have made the same decision. Junior brother Lingtian. Suddenly, as though he was reminded by something, Ji Yuli's eyes lit up before he looked at Duan Lingtian. Hurry up and tell Elder Tang Shan to let me stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum as well. In this case, you don't have to face Lian alone. That's right, Zhu Luqi agreed as well. Please tell Elder Tang Shan to let me stay here as well. The more people you have with you, the more help you'll have. With me and Ji Yuli around, we can help share the burden. It was only natural Duan Lingtian felt a sense of warmth in his heart when he heard their words. He was particularly surprised that Zhu Luqi, whom he was not as close to compared to Ji Yuli, would make such a decision. Chapter 1900, was Duan Lingtian the kind of person who would knowingly put his friends in danger? Duan Lingtian instantly made up his mind. Elder Tang Shan, if you have any acquaintances among the 6 elders in the other 3 sanctums, please ask them if they can take my 2 companions in. I don't wish for them to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum with me. Duan Lingtian immediately transmitted his voice to Tang Shan after he made up his mind since Tang Shan was the only one he could rely on now. Duan Lingtian wanted the elders from the other 3 sanctums to take Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi in before Lian remembered them. Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi were always looking out for him, it was only natural that he wanted to repay them. You do not wish to implicate them? Tang Shan asked through voice transmission. A hint of praise could be seen in his eyes. Naturally gifted, powerful, and considerate toward his comrades. It was rare for a person to possess all 3 qualities. Tang Shan's impression of Duan Lingtian rose even higher. Yes, Duan Lingtian nodded. This is something I'm happy to help you with. Tang Shan replied Duan Lingtian through voice transmission. Duan Lingtian relaxed and thanked Tang Shan after he heard Tang Shan's reply. Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi looked at Tang Shan hopefully. Although Tang Shan looked at them for a moment, he did not pick them. Instead, an elder from the White Tiger Sanctum and an elder from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum picked them at the same time. If they were selected at different times, Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi would not have suspected anything. However, they were instantly suspicious when they were selected at the same time. Junior brother Lingtian, did you ask Elder Tang Shan to request the elder of Vermilion Bird Sanctum to pick me? Ji Yuli asked Duan Lingtian through voice transmission with a grim expression on his face as he stood behind the 2 elders from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. He suspected this was Duan Lingtian's doing, but he was not entirely certain. Is it you? Zhu Luqi also transmitted his voice to Duan Lingtian while he stood behind the 2 elders from the White Tiger Sanctum. Their words were filled with dissatisfaction because Duan Lingtian had made such a decision without consulting them. Don't worry, I can look out for myself. On the contrary, it would be more difficult for me to deal with things if both of you are around. Duan Lingtian had expected both of them to question him, so he gave them an answer he had prepared beforehand. You are afraid that I'll be a burden to you? Ji Yuli said discontentedly. Although Zhu Luqi did not say anything, it was obvious he felt dissatisfied from the expression on his face. However, they knew it was futile to continue questioning Duan Lingtian's decision since everything was set in stone now. Lian suddenly realized the elders from the White Tiger Sanctum and Vermilion Bird Sanctum whom Tang Shan was close to had selected both of Duan Lingtian's companions. Damn it, how could I have forgotten about them? They are Duan Lingtian's companions. Duan Lingtian will suffer even more if I torture them. Lian felt regretful when he recalled this. Lian regretted that he did not think of this sooner. Earlier, he was overwhelmed with happiness and excitement from being able to make Duan Lingtian stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum that it led to him forgetting about Duan Lingtian's 2 companions. However, it was too late for him to do anything now. Everything had been decided. Not only were Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi unable to change the result, but even Lian was unable to bring Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi to the Black Turtle Sanctum. Moreover, Both elders from the White Tiger Sanctum and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum were friends of Tang Shan. Naturally, they would not let him take Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi away just like that. It's fine, they're not important. It's enough as long as Duan Lingtian is in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Li Yan consoled himself inwardly. Since he was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse, it was only natural that he had good self-control. He came to terms with this fact very quickly. As time passed, those people that came for the four symbols sanctums, assessments were slowly divided among the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, Vermilion Bird Sanctum, and Black Turtle Sanctum. There were about 1,000 people in each sanctum after the selection. The assessment of the four symbols sanctums in the fire worship sect will eliminate everyone until about 100 people remain in each sanctum. In other words, the Black Turtle Sanctum will have to eliminate almost 1,000 people after this. Duan Lingtian noticed there were about 1,000 people around him after he looked around. Soon after, the 6 elders from the other 3 sanctums bade farewell to Tang Shan and Li Yan and left with their followers. Be extra careful, junior brother Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, stay calm, and don't act impulsively. Ji Yuli and Zhu Luqi transmitted their voices to him through voice transmission before they left with the elders from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum and White Tiger Sanctum respectively. They were both headed to different sanctums and could not be of any help to Duan Lingtian for the time being. Don't worry. Duan Lingtian nodded and gave them a reassuring look. The elders of the 3 other sanctums led those they have selected back to their respective sanctums in just a blink of an eye. There were only Tang Shan, Li Yan, and 1,000 people they had selected, including Duan Lingtian, left on the scene. The assessment will begin tomorrow. Since you're not disciples of the Black Turtle Sanctum yet, you'll have to camp out here tonight. Only the 100 people who successfully pass the assessment will have their own places to cultivate in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Tang Shan said in his booming voice as he faced Duan Lingtian and the others. Instantly, apart from Duan Lingtian and a few others who remained calm, the others became excited. It was as though they could already see themselves passing the assessment from the Black Turtle Sanctum and becoming a disciple with their own cultivation place in the sanctum. Tang Shan looked at Duan Lingtian after he finished his speech and said through voice transmission, Duan Lingtian, apart from assessing your strength, the assessment tomorrow places more importance on your innate talent. Remember to display your innate talent tomorrow. As long you're able to show that you have a high innate talent, you'll be able to catch the attention of the sanctum leader. If you're able to catch the sanctum leader's attention, Li Yan won't be able to look for trouble with you so easily in the future. Understood, Duan Lingtian replied through voice transmission as he nodded. Tang Shan left after speaking to Duan Lingtian. It seemed as though he did not care that Li Yan was still there. Tang Shan knew that as long as Duan Lingtian did not provoke Li Yan would not dare to blindlessly attack Duan Lingtian. If he had attacked Duan Lingtian without a reason, he would be punished. He might even be expelled from the fire worship sect. As one of the 3 strongest sects in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, there were strict rules in the fire worship sect. The 3 strongest sects were able to stay in power for such a long time because they adhered to the saying, rules make the world go round. Sure enough, Li Yan left shortly after Tang Shan's departure. However, before Li Yan left, he looked at Duan Lingtian coldly. It sent chills up Duan Lingtian's spine. He could feel the determination and killing intent in Li Yan's gaze. You're intent on killing me? It'll test your patience and determination. Duan Lingtian said with a sneer on his face. He knew very well that Li Yan could kill him easily like an ant. However, Li Yan could be expelled for violating the rules in the fire worship sect if he killed Duan Lingtian here. Duan Lingtian was confident Li Yan did not have the determination needed to kill him since he would not allow himself to be expelled from the fire worship sect. Otherwise, Duan Lingtian would have died earlier. The attention of everyone left on the scene quickly shifted to Duan Lingtian once Li Yan left. Most of the people's eyes were filled with pity as they looked at him. Duan Lingtian has offended Elder Li Yan. He will suffer in the Black Turtle Sanctum even if he doesn't die. Most people shared the same thought. Duan Lingtian ignored all their stares and crossed his legs and sat in the air and began to cultivate with his eyes closed. One last step to Divine Saint stage. It's taking me too long to get past this last step. Duan Lingtian sighed as he began to cultivate. Duan Lingtian cultivated as usual since he did not expect to make a breakthrough. However, a miracle could happen at any moment. As the Sun True Origin breached the bottleneck and broke the shackles that stopped him from breaking through to the Divine Saint stage from the Eminent Saint stage, Duan Ling Tian discovered the true origin in his body had transformed into a new energy. This is the Saint energy. Duan Ling Tian thought to himself as he felt the new power coursing in his body. I've broken through just like this. The breakthrough had taken Duan Ling Tian by surprise since he did not expect it. No wonder people say that pressure is a form of motivation. It seems like the threat from a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse pressures me and unconsciously improves my cultivation efficiency, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Duan Ling Tian devoted all his attention to the new energy in his body. The energy was no longer the true origin energy. Instead, it was Saint energy that was unique to cultivators at the Divine Saint stage and above. Saint energy was a lot stronger than true origin energy. It felt majestic, even more so because it had transformed into the Sun Saint energy. It was far superior to the Sun True Origin. The Sun Saint energy is very powerful, Duan Ling Tian said excitedly as he felt the Sun Saint energy coursing through the 99 Saint veins in his body. If I transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior and unleash all my techniques, I might be able to defeat a powerhouse at the peak of the exemplary Saint stage with my current cultivation base. This is, Duan Ling Tian narrowed his eyes, and he frowned when he discovered something.